Hello, 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 hello. Audio's doing good. And Pixie there. All right. Hi, Gred. I'm doing all right. How are you? Let me get rid of that starting overlay. 'Cause we have our game up. How are you doing this fine day? We're gonna be playing. Uh, this is Our Life. What is this? What is it's Our Life. Beginnings and always? Doing good, thanks. Did absolutely nothing for Valentine's Day. Not much of a Valentine's Day person. Mr. Pink and I didn't really do anything for Valentine's Day either. I cut an apple into a heart for him. That's about the extent of what we did for Valentine's Day. I made him. We had steak and potatoes for dinner last night. Because I was gonna do steak and potatoes for dinner tonight, but then he's like, "But you're streaming tonight." So and I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. I'll just do that tonight then." All right, there's a tutorial. I'm gonna see what the tutorial is. Real question is, did he eat the? Yes, he ate the apple. Oh my god. Yes, he ate the apple. He might. Okay. I swear to God, he does. What is this tutorial? Welcome to the Our Life Beginnings and Always full tutorial. It goes over every gameplay aspect and how it all works in detail. Um, From the main menu, there are multiple ways to get into the game. Continue loads the most recent save if there is one. Otherwise, it starts the game from the beginning. So proud of him. Oh my god. New file always starts the game right from the beginning, and load lets you pick from all the available save files and jump back into whichever one you'd like to keep playing. You'll also see a gallery option for the main menu. The gallery lets you view special CG images that appear at certain points in the story. Many CGs happen automatically by simply going through the game, while some can only be seen by making specific choices and or having a specific type of relationship with a certain character. It isn't possible to get every CG from a single playthrough. You have to reload a save file to make different choices in order to see them all. Ho ho ho. And a handful of CG images aren't available in the free version of the game. They only appear in the DLC moments that can be purchased. There are 7 total DLCs. I actually have one of the DLCs because it was a free one. It's in voiced names, so I think it might just be like, you know, giving voices to the characters to like say their name or something maybe. Not sure. There are 6 other DLC that are like a couple bucks each. There's like some of them that are like $2.99, and I think the most expensive one is like $4.99. But I don't have any of the paid ones. DLC CGs are marked as such, so you know if you can fill that spot or not while playing the free version. Getting into the actual game, our life currently is divided into 4 time periods called steps. Step 1, childhood. Step 2, adolescence. Step 3, teenage. And Step 4, adulthood. The script is further divided into sets of vignettes that take place during specific periods of time. These are called moments. Moments can be played in any order or skipped entirely. You move on to the next step whenever you want by selecting that summer is ending. Okay. Unlike the first 3 steps, step 4, adulthood, is a little different. It acts as an epilogue and won't feature moments like the first 3 steps. Oh, okay. Um, oh, Vampire, I didn't even ask you. How are you doing? Did you have any plans for Valentine's Day? Steps 1 through 3 include 5 moments each, and even more can be unlocked by purchasing DLCs. 3 DLCs are available right now, a DLC for each step from 1 through 3. More will release later on. There's actually more than that now. Full refresh. Sitting up. When you begin your life playthrough, you'll be met with a character creation screen. There you'll be able to decide various details about the protagonist for that file. You determine nearly everything about the main character: name, appearance, personality, pronouns, interests, skills, their relationship with major characters, and so on. Oh. You can decide to change the detail as time goes on, with a few exceptions. Your last name, skin tone, and eye color can't be altered once set. To make traits you're giving the main character easier to picture, there's a cute doll shown on the main character feature deciding screens. Gonna cook some steaks and potatoes for dinner. Maybe watch a horror movie. Oh, we didn't watch a horror movie, but we watched Prey, um, or Predator movie. That was pretty good. Was Ben 10 purely a British thing, or did you see it? Oh, it was definitely that was definitely an American thing. Like we there was Ben 10 was very popular. Let's see. Not all the things you decide about the main character appear on the doll. The script referencing what you've decided for the main character is the main way those decisions influence the game. As the main character grows up, even more options become available to them. And our life has a first person perspective, so your character doesn't appear next to other characters' sprites. You only see the main character as the decorative doll and in special cut in CG images. The cut in CGs only appear if certain choices are made. It's possible not to see any during a playthrough. As mentioned, if you want a decent horror movie, watch Apostle on Netflix. Gory, borderline spooky. Ooh, okay. Nice. Also, Benton is a good choice. There's some choice dialogue in there. It's pretty funny. As mentioned, one of the decisions you'll get to make for your characters is selecting a name. You can type any name you like, or you can pick a preset name. Preset options are called voiced names because the name will be voiced aloud by the romantic lead. You'll get to hear him say your name as you play through the story. Only as the default name, Jamie, is included in the base game. Hundreds more can be added by getting a free voiced name expansion DLC. The full collection of names is separated out as a DLC because of how large it is. If you're not interested in that feature, you don't need to get it. Each name in the DLC belongs to or was selected by someone who supported this project. After choosing a voice, you'll be able to retype the name if the spelling isn't what you'd like, such as using the name Gray, but spelling with an A. You can change the name voice you go by each new step, and you can change the name voice you go by each time a new step begins. You can also go from using a voice name to an unvoiced name, and vice versa. While all of the characters in our life have partial voice acting, only the main interest will utilize the voiced first name feature. No one else will say the names aloud. Moving on from the character creation scene, there's a second special screen that determines details about the main character. The interest comfort screen? Oh my god, this is so in-depth. Unless you get DLCs, the game has one love interest, Cove Holden. He grows up with the main character, and the interest comfort screen is crucial for determining how that plays out. Interest level sets how much you like him. There are 4 levels: disinterest, fond, crush, and love. Love is only available starting in step 3, and if you were at fond or crush in step 2. The difference between crush and love is not as large as the difference between other interest levels, since both make the main character, interested in Cove. But crush means you're interested in him and might consider having him to be your boyfriend. You can still be flirty with other characters around. Love means Cove is absolutely the only person in the world for the main character, and they'd consider not just dating, but spending their whole life with him. You can't be flirty with anyone else either. Comfort determines how you generally think when it comes to him. There are 3 levels: nervous, relaxed, and direct. Your level of interest and comfort will set the type of dynamic your character has with the love interest. You get to decide your interest comfort near the beginning of every step. Comfort can switch between the 3 levels as you please. Your interest level can only stay the same or increase. Ooh. This is a lot of explanation. I probably should have read this beforehand, but this is kind of interesting. This is like a really in-depth. I've never played an in-depth dating sim like this. I don't play a lot of dating sims. I think I've played Dream Daddy, and I think that might be the only dating sim I've played. You're on the screen in the future. For example, if you decide to be fond in step 1, disinterest will not be available on the screens in steps 2 through 4, which will make fond the bottom level. Okay, that makes sense. Dream Daddy. Yeah, I love that game. Who do you like the most in Dream Daddy? Because I always romance Robert. Um, Let's see. What you did in the past will influence the present, and feelings can change over time. An indifferent interest level in step one that moves to a crush level in step two will be a little different than if you were always crushing on Cove. The same goes for the other interest level combinations: indifferent staying indifferent, indifferent to friendship, friendship that's still friendship, friendship to crush, etc. Through interest levels, you can slow burn romance, starting at disinterest and having the feelings grow over the steps until love is reached only at the very end. Or you can be you can always just say good friends or something else. The experience can be further customized by trying out different comfort levels. As for him, Cove will return the same level of interest you have. He wants to get along with you if you give him a chance. If you don't, he'll keep his distance. Interest level has an impact when it comes to physically interacting with Cove. While growing up, things are rather simple. If you get along with one another and have a close friendship relationship, you can choose to touch him, and Cove will occasionally interact with the main character in lighthearted or comforting ways. But starting in step three, touching can become more romantic or suggestive if you're at crush or love. To make things go nicely with that, there will be an extra choice to determine initiative level. Okay, roll for initiative. Alrighty, bye, have fun. Um, roll for initiative. And a bonus mini tutorial that goes along with the choice to explain that will feature more in detail. Basically, even if you decide you like Cove, the game won't force you to act on those feelings. You can always choose not to get together with him, choose not to accept or give romantic gestures, etc. If you do decide to date Cove, though, you can't break up later. Interest comfort gets the basics down, but it's the choices that appear throughout the normal game events that decide what actually happens between the main character and Cove. And it isn't only the main character who's impacted by your decision. Cove grows and changes over the years. How he's treated and what he experiences helps shape who he becomes. After step one, Cove's personality, appearance, and interests will vary based on what happened in the previous step. The differences in personalities become more notable in step three than in step two. Cove's appearance is separated into shirt, pants, hairstyle, glasses, bracelet, and necklace. Earrings also become in step 3, and then tattoos in step 4. Usually there is many options as the number of step it is, so only one version of Cove in step 1. 2 hairstyles, shirt options, glasses types, etc. in step 2, and then 3 of each in step 3. There are some exceptions. 2 and 3 only have one necklace option, and step 4 has 2. And sometimes Cove has special occasion outfits, such as wearing a swimsuit or a jacket. Those clothes tend to have fewer possible options or only come in just one version. Hair, shirt, and pants have to appear on Cove. Glasses, bracelets, necklaces, earrings are optional and can be left out entirely. Cove's personality falls along a warm, moderate, cold spectrum. As a child, he simply says what he thinks he feels like, and that's it. He can remain that way as he grows, become chattier, or start keeping things to himself. A moderate Cove remains straightforward and candid with how he tends to interact with people. A Cove on the warm side can be more polite and personable, might have longer conversations, or add in lighthearted teasing. He's affable. A Cove on the cold side tends to say things more briefly, especially with those he isn't close with. Be needier and more serious. He's quiet. It's possible to have him fall somewhere in between rather than only being at one extreme or the other. No matter what, Cove is an introvert who is sentimental and intends to get flustered when it comes to romance. His interests fall along a sporty, mixed, studious spectrum. It works similarly to the personality one. When he's young, Cove has a variety of interests. As time goes on, that can stay the same, begin to focus more on athletic outdoorsy activities, or become more interested in academic indoorsy ways to spend time. It's something of a mystery how your decisions end up changing him. You can try and guess as you go along. Okay. Or if you prefer, you can just design your own ideal Cove directly using the Cove Creator option that pops up at the beginning of steps 2 and 3. Oh my god. I mean, okay, I guess. I guess it makes sense, at least, like, I see how it sounds really silly that you can just like make the ideal version of Cove, but also for people that want to see all of the DLC, it makes sense. This is a lot of detail. Making the choices you want is always more important than making a choice because you feel like you have to in order to get a certain result. When a choice does appear, usually you'll see that hovering the cursor over an option shows a certain color, yellow, blue, or green. The colors aren't related to specific points or effects. They're only there to give a bit of insight on the tone emotion of the choice, since text alone can potentially be read in more than one way. Ooh, nice. Blue tends to be casual, straightforward. Yellow is more emotive or reactive. And green, less certain, uncommitted. That's good to remember. Though there are hundreds of options in our life and not every choice menu falls in line with that pattern. Picking just one color every time doesn't give a gameplay benefit. Only stick to a certain type if that's what you happen to like, otherwise switch between them freely. Always pick yellow, never pick yellow. Pursue romance right from the start. Never romance the love interest. Be disagreeable or amiable. None of them will lead to a bad ending. You're welcome to enjoy the events and shape the story without reservation. And then, if you like, you can play again and try something new. There's only ever more good content to discover. We hope you have a nice time with our life. Thank you for playing. Whew, that's a lot. Okay. Well, I guess it's a new file. What do we want to do? Oh my god. Oh, this is so cute. Okay. Oh no. Oh my god. Okay. Chubby, pointed, oval, peach, square, round. Okay. Okay, what if... Okay, hang on. So round is what it starts on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh wait, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there's 6 of those. No, I thought I had a roll function. I'm gonna do like, I don't know, should I? That is super pale. Oh my god. What did it start on? Did it start on like tan, I think? Okay. Okay, I think I'm gonna do square face. No. Oval face. I'm gonna do oval face. I think I'll stick with tan. Got round 1, round 2, rectangle 1, rectangle 2, oval. Wait, what's the difference between okay, oval 1, oval 2, sharp, pointed. Oh my god, I don't know. Lidded. I like the lidded style. Yeah, I think I like the lidded style. Okay, got brown, beige, yellow, gold, orange, red, pink, choppy, curled, flowy, short, medium. Locks, parted, tripe. Oh my god, that's how I wear my hair. Ugh. Some of these options are really funny. Oh my god, there's so many options. I think I'm gonna go back to the one where it's cut and parted in the middle. I like that one. Flip back, smooth. I don't want long. Maybe I want long. Oh my god, there's so many options. Okay, I think that's the one I want. We got brown, beige, yellow, gold, orange. Oh my god. I think I'll do brown. Oh my god, they have so many! Do they have pink? That'd be really cool. Do they have pink? No! If that's a color.
Opal. Sorrow. Zoe. Yawn. V.
Oh no, I don't know what I want.
On.
You should name them Gred. I don't think Gred is gonna be an option. I tell you what, if Gred is an option, I will name them Gred. It's not.
Lyric. Jinx. Mox. Mod.
There's so many.
Giga. Leaf. Jupiter. Ivy. Jupiter.
Nope. It's Jupiter. Sorry. No, that Jupiter's kind of silly though.
Rye. Umu. Patience.
Patience.
Siobhan.
Oh, that's a pretty name.
Sophia. Season.
Season.
Selkie. Riza.
Like Hawkeye? Riza Hawkeye? Oh my god.
Rosetta. Luna Lucian. Opal.
Barbie!
Basil.
Oh wait, hang on. I like Basil. Basil leaf. Alright, looks good. There's birthmarks? Oh my god. Hand size. I don't know. What do you think? Glasses or no glasses? But we have no idea what this stuff looks like. Yeah, they're all kind of little. Doesn't really make sense to have freckles on all over your body, but not on your face. Full refresh. You're right, I'm working up a... I'm working myself to death with character creation. Character creation. Let's do like one on the arm, maybe. Like a scar on the arm. And we'll say no to hats. After missing Sunday's stream, I'm not gonna let you slack on your okay, okay. Oh wait, that's all done. Okay. Basil leaf, let's go. Summer in Sunset Bird was a special time of year. Oh, hang on, let me do like a voice. Let me do like a voice, okay? Summer in Sunset Bird was a special time of year. Your usually sleepy town began to bustle. It was a popular tourist destination with people coming from all over to enjoy the beach, the weather, and the relaxation that came with both. The smell of the ocean, crisp and salty, hung in the air, bringing 3 whole months of schoolless vacation with it. During the summer, your moms didn't like you to wander too far outside of your neighborhood, so you knew the area pretty well. That included the people. Families came and went from Sunset Bird, but they mostly stayed and did what your mom called putting down roots. They built businesses, they got to know each other, and they definitely said hello to the nice young kids who waved when passing their stores. Going for a walk around town mostly meant that the familiar, friendly residents waved or asked how your family was, or most often just said hello. Oh, okay, we have options. You didn't really get why they always had to say hi. They saw you every day, but you nodded back at them anyway. You ended up saying hi to a lot of different people since most of the tourists that came and went every summer were the same ones. You were too anxious to say hi back to most of the other residents that greet you, but they all knew you well enough to expect that. Hmm. I guess I'm a little kid, so probably saying hi. Yeah, yeah. You enjoyed learning all about where they were visiting from and hoped to visit those places one day too. But today there was a man sitting on the curb outside your house. He was sitting with his head in his hands, his whole body slumped over, and you wondered if he was even a real person or a statue that had magically sprung up from the ground overnight. Whoever or whatever he was, you had never seen him before. One thing about knowing everyone in Sunset Bird was that people who you didn't recognize really, really stood out. It was rare for tourists to venture into the residential district, as your moms called it. So for you, not knowing who a total stranger was set off a lot of red flags. Your moms had a talk with you and your big sister Lizzie about this kind of situation before. Oh, God, another choice. You hadn't exactly been listening at the time. You think it could be okay to talk to new people. They mentioned that some people aren't good to talk to, but other types of people can help you even if you don't know them. You remember that it's okay to run away if you feel uncomfortable. You don't have to worry about being polite then. Um, I think the one that makes the most sense is probably being allowed to run away. Oh right, I forgot they light up. You weren't sure about this man yet. Still, you felt a bit scared knowing that he was blocking the way to your front door. Oh my god, he's at my front door. But you were pretty interested instead. You wanted to know more about what was going on. Whether he was nice or not, you didn't want to be bothered. I guess I kind of want to know what's going on. Yeah, I want to know what's going on. You slowed down, your eyes remaining fixed on the man. There was a split second where your eyes met and you knew he was aware he wasn't alone on the street anymore. Hey! You raised your eyebrows at the shout. Did he want something? Is that why he's here? The man stood up and started to make his way toward you. Ooh. Not wanting to seem too approachable, you folded your arms and stared. Still unsure about him, but willing to be friendly, you offered the stranger a smile. Your whole body was frozen in place as he approached. That sounds scary. Uh, do you live around here? What's your name? You looked the man up and down, taking in his tan skin and relaxed appearance. At least his clothing were relaxed. The way he was acting wasn't. He had sharks on his shorts and a stingray tattoo, and you wondered if he was obsessed with the ocean or something. What are you, like, obsessed? While you made your assessment, he looked at you expectantly, waiting for an answer to his question. I don't want to be too friendly. Yeah, I live here. That's great. He looked happy to hear it, giving you a broad smile. Oh, he's bribing me now. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean $20 bill. It crinkled in his hand as he held it up to you. Even more confused than before, you looked back at him. Could you do me a favor? Nothing bad. Sorry, I should have... Let me start over. He cleared his throat and stood up straighter. He does look pretty. But I'm not in the dating portion of it yet. I'm still a kid right now. So like even though he looks like a young adult, like even though he looks like he's probably like, I don't know, like 20, even though he looks like a young adult, I'm a child right now. So he's a grown up, and grown-ups are scary. Grown-ups are scary. From where you were standing, it just made him look creepier. See? Grown-ups are scarier. I have a son. His name is Cove, who's about your age. Okay, no, he's not 20. He's probably like 30. Cove. That seems like a strange name for an actual living person. Okay, shut up. Your name is Basil. This guy was definitely obsessed with water. He wasn't the only person like that in Sunset Bird. We moved in across the street, see? Oh, whoopsie. Oh, you can scroll to go backwards. Ayo. He gestured towards the house that had been empty for a year, his watch catching on the late afternoon sunlight and reflecting off the walls. The gigantic "For Sale" sign was finally gone. You must be Basil Leaf, right? I met your moms earlier and they told me you were 8, just like him. So... Oh no. Is he gonna pay me to hang out with his kid? He shook the $20 bill to bring it back to your attention, a hopeful smile tilting his lips at the corner. Can you try to be friends with the boy? Just give it a chance and you can keep this. He's a good kid. You'll like him. But you've got to keep it a secret too, okay? It wouldn't be friendly to say his dad sent you. Oh my god. The other kids really get their parents to pay for friendships. I do feel kind of sorry for Cove. This definitely wasn't the normal way kids made friends. You knew that. What do you say? Want to make a deal? Do I take the money? Of course I'm taking the money. You carefully plucked the bill from his outstretched hand, grinning at the thought of what you could do with that much cash. Oh my god, there's so many options. All the sweets you could ever want. You could buy a ticket for the newest movie at the cinema. There was a cute stuffed animal you had seen in a store in town. It cost a few dollars to set up a library card. With this, you could pay for it yourself instead of having your moms do it. You weren't even sure yet. Do I answer? How? I don't know what to answer. I know what I would answer. But I don't know how much I want these answers to be my answers. I don't know how this will affect stuff. I guess I could do maybe the You know what? Because it's taking me so long to decide, I'm not even sure yet. The sky was the limit with that kind of amount. The man smiled at you, his eyes crinkling at the sides as he did. Great. That's great. I'll bring him by tomorrow. I wanted him to meet and greet with the neighbors today, but Well, I don't know where he's gotten off to. He laughed when he said that, but with the way his face looked, you thought he he actually wanted to cry. If if you see him, can you tell him to come on home? He's got a pink cast and glasses. You can't miss it. Sure thing. This definitely wasn't the normal way kids made friends. You knew that, but you were still gonna help. The man smiled and reached out to pat you on the head, paused before doing so, and then pulled his hand away instead. Your moms are already checking around for me. Such a thoughtful group you are. I better look too. Can't put everyone else to work while I keep sitting here. Thought he might come back, and that's not what's important. I have to go. Thanks again, Basil, so much. He jogged off down the street without another word. You decided to check the hills behind your house. I want to find the kid. Of course I want to find the kid. I am a kid. Step 1. First sight. The chirping of crickets in the tall grass greeted you, quiet and familiar. From the top of the hill you could see the ocean. As you walked and listened, you listened to the crash of the waves on the shore and the seagulls squawking as they settled down for the night. I've always loved the ocean. It was so much fun. You love to hear stories about the sea, about the merfolk and sea serpents you imagine living far beneath the waves. You didn't enjoy the beach all that much, especially the sand, which got absolutely everywhere. Okay, Anakin Skywalker. God. God. Hmm. The beach is amazing. Okay, so it gotta be one of these two. I guess, hmm. Oh my God. Thank you. I am looking after my posture, I promise. I'm sitting up so nicely. I guess I'll do the stories. I loved hearing about the stories of the sea. Let's see. Sometimes you could almost convince yourself that you had seen the flash of a shiny mermaid's tail in the distance. You took in a deep breath. You wanted to try to relax and couldn't. You're watching me. Oh, so ominous. Hmm. Just because I'm a hypocrite doesn't mean you can trust. You weren't sure what, but something told you that you weren't alone, so you glanced around. There was a boy sitting at the top of one hill, almost completely hidden within the long grass and white flowers surrounding him. His head was buried in his knees, staring ahead by himself. For whatever reason, probably just that he wasn't paying attention, he hadn't noticed you yet. You watched him a minute longer, feeling a bit like you'd found a deer in the wild. Though didn't though deer didn't have. Oh no, what am I paying attention to? I mean, the first thing I noticed was how sad he looked. But like all of these. So, I guess the first thing I noticed was that he looked really sad. So, I'll put sad from. Aw, you're lonely. I'm sorry, Gred. I hope you're able to enjoy today. Maybe hang out with some friends, play some video games with people, something like that. But this new boy did. You wondered what could have upset him. After a few more seconds, you took a step forward, then another, and then he glanced your way. Oh, was his eye always looking at me? His aquamarine eyes reflected the light of the moon. You stopped, raising a hand to acknowledge him and show you weren't scary. Today wasn't anything special, it was just a day. Yeah, and I hope that you're enjoying today. It's the only today that you have, until the next one comes. And then it's still every day is only today. Hi. Hey, Space Cadet! Got a whole lot better. Aw, that's sweet. I'm glad I could help make your day a little bit better. Are you lost? Hmm. Hi. Hey, Space Cadet. Or are you lost? This is such sad music. I'm gonna just say hi. With a start, he jumped to his feet. I don't think it was very wise. I just make stuff up. With a start, he jumped to his feet, his hands falling into fists at his sides. Aw. He didn't say anything, just stared at you in a strange way. Aw, poor baby. He'd been crying. There were traces of tears on his cheeks and his knees, soaking at the hem of his shorts, and his eyes were still shining with a few more. You'd obviously caught him off guard. Oh. His pink cast seemed to glow in the twilight, though when he caught you staring at it, he hid his arm behind his back. Something the man earlier had said stuck out to you. Cove? Ah. Hey, the best bit about humans is every now and then someone reinvents Shakespeare by I've heard some really good ones. I've heard some really good ones that sound like they're like from like some like, high literature and then it's like from a fanfic or a tweet. It's so funny. Eyes wide, he studied you. How'd you know that? You touched the money in your pocket, feeling it crinkle beneath your fingertips. Oh no. I mean, there's no point in lying. Everybody's looking for him right now. I met your dad. Oh, so is this Hill? He gestured with his uninjured arm to the patch of grass surrounding you, his face falling at the prospect. I can leave if it is. Oh, oh. You can't own a hill. No. While doing so, you also picked at a strand of lint at your leg, on your leg. What a weird question to ask someone. Oh. He sat back down with a thump, resting his chin on his knees again. Curious about the strange new boy with the odd dad, you sat on the patch of grass next to him. The pure white flowers that covered this hill rocked back and forth gently as the stars twinkled above. The way they dotted the sky made them seem like flowers, too. The night wind was cool as it traveled over the ocean and up the hill, chasing away the heat from the afternoon sun. Why'd your family move? Oh. A quiet hiccup escaped Cove as soon as you asked the question. Almost like they'd never stopped. His tears started up again with a vengeance. My parents, they don't want to live together with me anymore. Oh, he's a divorced kid. He's a divorced kid. The tears fell fast and heavy over his flushed cheeks, sticking in his dark lashes. Oh, my mom made my dad leave and he took me with me and now we have a house here and I want to go home. The outburst took you off guard. By the time he was done wailing, Cove's chest was heaving with exhaustion. He sniffled and removed his glasses, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand before he put them back on again. I hate this place. I want my real life back. I want my mom. Aww. I'm sorry. He slipped his hands underneath his glasses and pressed his fingers against his eyelids. Cove wound himself up for another long crying fit. You felt bad for him, being forced to come here with no choice. You couldn't imagine what it would be like to live with only one of your moms, but it must be pretty hard. But from way off in the distance, you heard your parents. Basil! Cove? Kids, where did you go? He needs a hug so bad. Cove looked at you, tears still clinging to his cheeks. Don't tell them we're here. I don't want to. Oh! I don't want to go back to that house. I want to go home. Ooh, you can handle it. You have to go. Don't worry so much. Sorry, I have to, or it will be okay. Okay, I don't want to say don't worry. And I don't want to say sorry, I have to. I also don't, I kind of don't want to say you have to go either. I think that either you can handle it or it will be okay, will be the best options. I think I'm gonna go with you can handle it. You can handle it. And even if you can't, he's your dad, right? Yeah, he is. Aww. Dusting the grass off of your pants, you stood up. So you didn't come by here by yourself or with a stranger. He's got to take care of you no matter what. Slowly, Cove stood up with you, still looking a little reluctant. His dad's voice rang out again. Cove, can you hear me? He looked toward the sound of his dad's voice, silent, then turned away while rubbing his not bandaged arm. Oh, sorry, I still don't want to go. I'm gonna wait with him. Yeah, I get it. You do? Before you could answer, you heard Cove's dad, even closer than before. There you are, bud. The trio of parents appeared over the curb of the hill. Instantly, all their eyes landed on you and they rushed over. Oh, are those my moms? My moms! My moms. Both of your moms were at your side in a split second, faces filled with worry. Basil, you're here after all. We had been at the park to check for Cove and then heard what happened earlier when you met the new neighbor. I thought you might have gone off further away. Let's see. No, we were just sitting in the grass. Why is everybody acting like this is such a big thing? We're okay, don't worry. Cove didn't want to go home just yet. Well, I'm not a snitch. No, we were just sitting in the grass. Thank God you're both fine. Okay, so this is mom and this is mommy. Were you two having fun out? Oh, maybe not, because her mouth is still open and now it just says mom. You looked over at Cove, who was wiggling against his dad's tight hug and pushing at his arm. So is this mom and this is mommy? Who is mom and who is mommy? I'm confused. I think I'm gonna Basil, you are 8 years old. Let's see. How do I feel about Cove? You shrugged. Yes, I like him. He's good. I think I'm gonna marry him. You know what? I'm currently being paid to hang out with him. Like Basil just got paid to hang out with him, and also like he kind of just feels bad for Cove, so I'm gonna say um you didn't think that was the right word to describe it, but you weren't sure what else to say to your moms. Oh, he looks so mad. Finally letting go of his squirming, scowling son, Cove's dad turned to the three of you. Thanks very much for finding him. I really don't know this neighborhood. Good thing Basil knows this whole area so well. Absolutely. We should be getting home now. It's been a long day for all of us. Say goodbye, Cove. Bye. The two of you walked off into the darkness, heading toward the neighborhood. You watched Cove's bright pink cast until it disappeared. Tell you what, we'll have a proper play date tomorrow, okay? Okay, so this must be Mom. Okay, there we go. I was right the first time. Your new friend's dad wanted to bring him by to see you and Lizzie. How does that sound? Sure, can I show him my stuff? Of course. Then okay. Both of your moms laughed, the sounds overlapping into a warm, familiar chorus. Mommy put her arm around your shoulder and led you towards the path. Satisfied and more than a little ready to go to bed after your long, exciting day, you followed them home. Oh no! Time for me to change my feel. Oh no! Okay. Okay, I think that based on what I think based on the reactions that I just did, I think that it's fond, and my comfort is relaxed, maybe? I think relax. Okay, I think fond and relaxed. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Fond, relaxed. Yes. Okay, that's what I'm going with. Alright. Begin step 1 at relaxed fondness. You won't be able to change it again until step 2. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Let's see. Okay. I had to check something. Okay. At the breakfast table the next morning, you finished your food faster than usual. Your sister Lizzie had run out earlier to go play, but you'd stayed put. Today, just like your moms had promised, Cove was coming over to hang out. Excited to see your new friend again, Basil? Yeah, I am. Oh, achievement unlocked. Relaxed.
How sweet.
Aw, how sweet. I'm so happy he moved in. With that said, are you done with your breakfast? Oy, oy, oy. Yeah. With all the exasperation an 8-year-old can muster, you looked at your empty cereal bowl, then at Mom.
Hey.
Okay, attitude kid, we'll see. Good job. He should be here soon. Cleanup began, and then, on cue, there was a knock. It was hesitant, like the person wasn't sure they were in the right place. Still loud, though. We need to get a more obvious doorbell. I know, I know. Basil, could you get it? Wriggling out of your chair without really pushing it back, you made your way to the door. I was not allowed to answer the door at 8 years old. Hey, Leaf family! Thanks for having us. Mr. Holden, as your moms have called him, and his son were here. Cove looked different in the bright lighting of your living room, and when he wasn't crying. With his dad standing in front of him and Mom and Mommy behind you, you and Cove looked at each other. Pleased to see your new friend again, you smiled at Cove. He smiled back with some hesitation. Aww! Okay, oh gosh, there's bracelets. Oh no! You twist, okay, so there's a threaded bracelet. There's a crystal bead bracelet, a flower bead bracelet, or a shell bracelet. Shell? The people have spoken. Let's go play in my room. Okay.
Take care.
Aw, let us know if you need anything, you two. Have fun, kids.
See you.
See you later, son. Play nice. The person has spoken. You're right, my bad. Um, this kid really just looks like he must take after his mom because the only thing I'm seeing is like the eyes look pretty similar. Like they're not quite the same, but like those are the only thing that really looks like a similarity here. That's the only similarity I'm seeing here. I control the streamer. How rude. You led him to your room, puffing out your chest a little bit at the sight of your treasures. There were lots of stuffed animals, a cool bed, a window to look out. It was a great room. You hadn't had anyone to show it to in a while, but you were really proud of it. He leaned in a little closer to one of your drawings on the wall. I like this. Aw. Me too. I drew that. Thank you. I don't. Oh, I'm not saying I don't. That's so stinky. Um, Thank you. You're welcome. You smiled at him. You were proud of that particular piece of art, and you were glad he noticed it. He turned to look around the room a little more, studying the books on your desk and the pictures on the walls. You started to feel a little bit nervous. You felt the atmosphere was kind of awkward. You were glad for the company. You hope he liked your room. It's been a while since since Basil has had people in his room, so I'm gonna say I was glad for the company. It was nice to have someone new to play with. Then he tucked his then his eyes landed on the tiny box of beach things you'd collected, tucked away by your door. He took a step towards it before hesitating and pointing at it instead. What's that? A hoard of stuff I found at the beach. Do you have any driftwood in there? A drift what? Driftwood? That's such a random question. Okay. Dragging the box into the middle of the room, you and Cove flopped down next to it. I think so. Yeah, see? Aww. You gestured to a piece at the bottom, still covered with specks of sand. Neat. This is a cool, good collection. Yeah, Driftwood's pretty cool. You got a sense from the tone of his voice that he wasn't just saying it to be nice or be like Shiloh. He actually meant it. Oh, right. I almost forgot. Shiloh's gonna be here today. Shiloh? Lizzie's friend. Or, like, her #1 fan, I guess? Do I have to see him? It should be okay. I mean, he's Lizzie's friend, not mine. But, you know, come on, check out my shells some more. He looks so annoyed. I found this one under a big piece of seaweed that had washed ashore, and oh, he looks less annoyed now. You pulled out seashell after seashell, explaining where you'd gotten each one and holding them up against the light. Is Basil just Gred? Gred, are you just Basil? Like, whenever I play Coral Island, you're just like, hey, can you show Suki my shell? There were big ones, small ones, pink, purple, and orange. Oh, I was there. Most of them you washed off in the bathroom sink when you brought them home, cleaning off the sand. Woohoo. Woohoo. Over the past few years, you'd even learned some of their scientific names. The collection was so huge and varied that you had lots of funny stories to tell for all of them. Your voice faltered a little bit, but you kept going as best as you could. Okay, so do I want to be a nerd, or do I want to have stories? Let's see. I have a bowl. You have a pocket full of shells and a bowl full of shells, and I stuck a bunch of shells on my bar as decoration. Mood. Okay. All right. That's pretty cool. I mean, Gret, I do have to ask you a question though. Like, are you planning on sharing those fun little trinkets, or are you gonna be shellfish? Okay. I'm okay, scientific names or stories. Let's see. I think I'll do stories? Apparently fascinated either by the stories or by the shells themselves, Cove listened with what looked like the full force of his attention. Like when you almost got pinched by a hermit crab while searching for shells, and after watching him scuttle back into the ocean, you found another empty shell that was almost a twin to his home. It was a new experience to be the center of such dedicated focus. But Cove hadn't been mean to you, so you didn't mind. You smiled at him every now and then while showing him your collection. Kids, come down to the living room. You could tell the idea was making him unhappy, but Mommy wasn't giving you much of a chance to hang around. Cove hadn't been like this since this meeting you. You guessed it was because he thinks you found each other by accident, not that a parent made it happen. Oh no, is there going to be angst later on? Mr. Holden must be right that telling Cove his dad was part of that would be a bad idea. Remember kids, um, secrets don't make friends. Before you knew it, you'd both been escorted downstairs and deposited in the living room, ready for Shiloh's visit. The two of you sat side by side on the floor of your home's entryway. What a cutie. I brought the box of shells. I want to keep looking at them. Aw. Great. Okay, but be careful. You should have asked. I don't want to be stinky. Like, I don't think... I mean, like, he should have asked, but also, like... But also, like, you should have noted, like, how do you not notice him grabbing the whole box of shells? But, like, whatever. Basil obviously cares about these shells, so I'm going to say, okay, but be careful. I will. You weren't sure if you could trust someone else with your treasures yet, so you stayed next to him while he opened a lid and peered inside. Cove reached in and pulled out a big orange shell. Oh. Like he hadn't spoken aloud yet, he turned to you and held it up, his eyes shining. I think this is the... Oh! He's got a real smile! Look at that smile! Aww! I think this is the best of them. My precious. Okay, Golem. That's my favorite too. I like a different one best. I can show it to you. You can take it. Should I give him the shell? Oh no. Should I? Oh, oh, oh. That's my favorite. Oh no. Well, first of all, I don't know if I should give it to him or not. I should give it to him. Cove looked at you in surprise, his eyes going wide. Really? Sure, you like it a lot, right? Uh-huh. But I don't want to take it from you. It's okay. You got the impression that he was hesitant to accept something because he didn't know you very well. Oh. Okay. Well, he doesn't want it, so... Okay. You didn't want to pressure Cove too much. It was supposed to make him happy, not nervous. Plus, Cove was your neighbor now. Maybe you could give it to him another time. Give it to him another time. The two of you were still sitting on the floor looking through your collection of beach findings when the doorbell finally rang. Cove jumped, startled by the sound. I don't like how like nervous this kid is. Why is this kid so nervous? What is really going on here? How did he break his arm? I need to know answers. I need answers. I need answers. Since the person hadn't knocked, you figured it was probably Shiloh. He knew where to look for that. Lizzie's friend? You nodded, but that didn't seem to make Cove feel better. It was already obvious that Cove didn't hide his feelings well. You could tell what he was thinking right away. I'm not suggesting anything because I don't know enough yet. I'm just saying that I would like things to be cleared up because I am right now I am considering the worst case scenario. And I just want to make sure that my boy is safe. Which, to be fair, even in the worst case scenario, he probably is safe because if he's not living with his mom and it's the worst case scenario, then it would be most likely his mom. But like, I'm worried, okay? I'm worried. He probably just broke his arm doing little kid stuff. It's fine. He's probably, yeah, it's probably nothing bad. I'm just worried. Little baby. Slightly worst case. Then that's not worst case if it's slightly less. Okay, it was already obvious Cove didn't hide his feelings well. You could tell what he was thinking right away. This isn't a good idea. Or maybe, because it could, like, there could not, it could be that there's not a problem with, like, his parents. Well, I mean, his parents are divorced, it sounds like, very clearly. Um, but there could also just be, like, straight up, like, there could be just, like, if he, like, broke his arm, it could have been, like, something like a negligent thing. Or you're right. Worst case would be he's still in the bad situation. You're right. You're right. You're right. That would be worst case. Let's see. Or it could be that the cast is just like completely coincidental, has nothing to do with the divorce separation. All right. Anyway, there's just a lot of things going on. And with kids, you gotta pay attention to the signs. You know, you gotta pay attention to the signs. You'll be all right. He's here. We can't tell him to leave. He's at our only door, and if you go upstairs, he'll find you. Why would you say it like that, Basil? And if you go upstairs, he'll find you. I always think. Yeah, that does sound very annoying. I have a funny story. Nah, I'm not telling that story. Never mind. Um, Cove glanced around the room, his eyes wide, and finally paused with his gaze locked on the back of the house. I could go out the window. Oh no, you're fine. I just had a story that I was going to that reminded me of, but then I was like, no, I probably shouldn't tell that story, so I decided not to. I didn't want to overshare. You're fine. I can understand how that like worry can bother you, and like I understand where that worry is coming from, and I also understand how exhausting that worry can be. All right, let's see. I can go out the window. Cove, please do not go out the window. It is becoming very clear that this kid broke his arm. I bet he broke his arm trying to get out of a social interaction. That is my official guess. He was already walking towards it. Scrambling to think of something to say, you stepped forward and then paused. Oh shoot. Do you want to break your other arm? Shiloh is the least scary person alive. Cheer up. Shiloh's gonna like you. Good night, Grad. I hope you have a good night. I will see you Thursday probably. Or some other time. See you later. Aw, it was good to have you. Here for you. Now who's gonna control my stream? Good night, Grad. Bye. Please don't get hurt. I'll come with you. Good idea. Let's go. I should not be enabling him. That was me like doing finger guns with snappies. Okay, Jericho, I wasn't calling you over here. I think I'll say, do you want to break your other arm? Even I don't jump out of any windows here, and this is my house. Just think, what would Gred do? And whatever you come up with, don't do it. It's probably a bad idea. Oh my god. Noted. The distance from the first floor living room window wasn't far, but you could tell Cove. It made Cove nervous anyway. He touched the cast on his arm. The wind had clearly released from his sails. Oh my gosh, I don't even have a drink. Hang on, I have to go get a drink. I have to go get a drink. Move, dog. Go. Yes, 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 I will do my slurpees. I'm trying to do it quickly. That's not me slurping, that's me filling up my Kool-Aid. Good night, Grid. Thank you for the parting gift. My spine says thank you. Okay. I don't want to break any more bones. I don't think anyone wants to. Yeah. But I don't want to see him. I don't know him. Should I tease him, comfort him, or encourage him? I'll comfort him. It's okay if you're worried. Nobody warned you this was gonna happen. Thanks. Shiloh poked his head into the living room. We get to see who Shiloh is. I want to see Shiloh. It was impossible to know for sure if he'd heard what you'd been saying or not, but you guessed that he had. Oh my god, he's so adorable. Oh my god. God, he's so little. He has an anchor on his, look at that bucket hat. Oh my god, he's so cute. He's so little. Okay, I see what Basil meant whenever he said that Shiloh was Lizzie's biggest fan, because I'm pretty sure Lizzie is Shiloh's older sister, or I think Lizzie is Basil's older sister, and Shiloh looks younger than Basil. So, hi Basil, and hi Cove. Cove shot you an uneasy glance. Hi. I'm Shiloh. It's nice to meet you. Oh, look at that ray of sunshine. Oh my god, he's so cute. He's so adorable. I just want to pinch your little cheeks. Yeah, you have a lot of freckles. Yeah, right. I do. What are you guys doing? We're looking at shells. Aww. Can I do it too? Of course you can. Cub shrugged and looked back at your box of beach findings. What about that one? The plan for the afternoon, at least as far as you were concerned, was to sit and look at the beach things some more. You weren't really in the mood to do much of anything else, especially if Cove was having fun. Hey, check out this scallop shell I found. Cool, right? It's a pretty color. Kind of like my cast. The beautiful glittering pink did look a little bit like the wrap around his arm. Pink is a nice color. I am a nice color. Okay. Is it your favorite? Not really. Okay. Wow. Wow. Wow, Cove. Okay. What is? Maybe green or blue. It might be yellow. Oh, those are all cool. I guess. Not sure how to deal with suddenly more. I'll say I like those colors too. Awesome. Both of them smiled. Like usual, it didn't take long for Shiloh to get fidgety. Lizzie was his favorite. Without her around, Shiloh didn't seem to know what to do with himself. And Cove wasn't like your sister. He wasn't that much like you either. Is Lizzie coming back? I don't know. Aw. Where'd she go? I think she's at the beach, probably. Is she playing at her park? Cove's eyes lit up at the mention of the park, and he looked towards you. There's a park? Yeah, but it's old. Can you show me? I want to go. He started getting up before you had even answered, and Shiloh jumped up beside him in excitement. Really? You do too, right, Basil? The park is fun. Oh my god, what is that? Just a little... I guess the park is pretty great. Yeah, sure. Yeah, and it's right at the beach, so there's lots of fun stuff to do, and lots of sand. It has a jungle gym and a bunch of swings. That sounds like it could be cool. Okay, cool. So, are we going to find Lizzie? I don't know. I never really wanted to see her. I just wanted to check out the park. Oh my god. Adrift without any direction, Shiloh finally turned to you. Okay. He perked up. Both boys wanted to go. It was only fair. After getting permission from your moms, the three of you were ready to head out. It was a short walk to the park. Lizzie had convinced your mom that it was so short she should always be allowed to walk there by herself. When you found her, she was hanging on the jungle gym, swinging back and forth. Hey, Lizzie! Her face lit up when she saw you, her big brown eyes going wide. Basil! Shiloh! Hi! She dropped to the ground and landed with a soft thud in the sand. In a split second, Shiloh had abandoned you two and scrambled over to stand by her. You were used to being left out when it was just the three of you, but now Cove was here. You wondered if he would leave too. Oh! Hello, big sister. Who's that? It's Cove. He's new. I remember. Hi, Cove. Welcome to my park. Nobody ever comes to play here, so this is where we get together. She gestured widely with her arms as if to present the area to the newcomer. I like the little sunflowers. Those are so cute. And then you have the sunflower seeds. While Lizzie continued talking, you took the chance to kick off your shoes and wiggle your toes through the warm sand. Nice, huh? In this neighborhood, I'm the one who comes up with the ideas. You are? Yeah, I am. Who else could handle the job? She's a leader. Lizzie is the oldest. By a lot. My mom said you're Basil's age. Yeah. Thought so. I'm still the only one in this group with double digits. What about other kids? Other kids? There aren't any. We're the only kids here, and Shiloh is just visiting from another place. Not even tourists really bring their kids here. This is the land of ancients. Be careful that the oldies don't try to steal your youth. Lizzie, what are you telling him? Oh my god. Oh. For a second, he looked like he might cry again. But something in his eyes shifted and he looked back at Lizzie. What kind of old people? Like moms and dads or grandparents? Grandparents who don't have kids. They hate kids. Why? We haven't done anything. Only some of them don't like kids. You interjected quickly, hoping Lizzie wouldn't take things too far. Cove sniffled, his forehead creasing with worry. Lizzie was staring Cove down, but Cove wasn't even looking at her anymore. He didn't seem to care that she was there. He went into his own head. Shiloh was the next one to speak, completely unaware of the situation. I met Lizzie and Basil in school. You'll see a ton of kids there once summer is over. I don't want to go to a new school. I don't want summer to end. Shiloh looked down to the dirt. He hasn't had much luck striking up conversation with Cove. Poor Shiloh. He is out here in the trenches trying to befriend this kid. And the only reason Cove has like befriended Basil is because he found him crying. I like summer vacation a lot too. All the building tension in the air suddenly vanished when Lizzie laughed. At Shiloh's discomfort, at how weird she thought Cove was, at something else entirely, you didn't really know, but she laughed, face scrunching up. Welcome to Sunset Bird Cove. Take a seat, put up your feet, and get used to it. Ugh. You offered him a small smile, and that, at least, looked to reassure him some. For the rest of summer, Cove was always there. You saw him more often than Shiloh, and on some days, when she was in a bad mood or busy, you even saw him more than Lizzie. He became a staple of your everyday life, the way the sun and lunch and the beach were. During your first summer together, you really liked Cove. He was a fun person to play with, and he seemed to like playing with you too. Of course, that was only the start of things. Oh my god, I have 5 different things that I can do in here? I could just skip it all. We're speed running. Okay. What should I start with? Since we started on the beach, I think I'm gonna start with Sandcastle. Cove wasn't able to do many things that summer. When you, him, and Shiloh sat out on the shoreline one bright morning, you could tell he wanted to be in the water. But there was no way he'd be swimming anytime soon. Not with his cast. The waves washed up a single shell to shore, glittering in blue. Another reminder of the places he couldn't go. From what you'd heard about Cove's old life so far in tiny pieces and fragments, you could tell that he'd do anything to be able to get the cast off. Like, make a pact with a witch or something, just to get it off his arm. You thought about how his summer last year must have been totally different from this, with his old home and his mom and his dad. But now he was here with you and Shiloh and Lizzie and everyone else, and he couldn't even go into the sea. This town wasn't bad. It had all your favorite things in it. But sitting there on the same beach you'd grown up on, you could understand that not everybody else felt the same way about Sunset Bird as you did. You watched him from the corner of your eye quietly, and he finally said aloud what you had been pondering. I wish I could go in. The water? Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. You're gonna be able to do it soon. Cove only sighed in response. Apparently soon wasn't soon enough. It's so pretty, the ocean. Mm-hmm. And huge. There could be anything out there, like mermaids. Oh. Hmm. I'm not gonna say mermaids aren't real because I literally like picked a thing earlier that was like I like to hear stories about them and stuff. So it seems like it'd be a little like weird to say like mermaids aren't real. Um, hmm. Something might be fun if we could, but it's not like there's anything we can do about it. Mm. Obviously not interested in hearing much more of your input on the situation. Cove turned back to the water. Wow, okay. But as he looked away, something about Shiloh's slow, careful movements caught his eye. Hey, are you building a sandcastle? Sort of. I was only playing around while you were talking. I'm listening.
mm.
Maybe I could too. I've only made big piles before. It's really nothing special. I'm sure you'll be good at it right away. Well, how do you do it then? Shiloh's cheeks lit up. You could tell he was a little bit uncomfortable to have Cove's expectant stare on him. I'll play too. Hmm. I love making sand stuff. Okay. He put his hand back to the seashells and sand and nodded. I don't do it a lot. Here's how I like to get a house started. Shiloh, focusing more intently than you'd ever seen him, guided Cove through his process. You happily used your own method. It didn't take long for the three of you to each have humble structures prepared. That's all, kind of. You can do anything now. Like, make it bigger, add some seashells, carve a pretty pattern. I bet you'll have great ideas. I'm gonna make it bigger. Mine's gonna be a real castle. Cool. This is gonna be a house. Looking at the base of your sound castle, you decided to make a castle, duh. Looking at the base of your sandcastle, you decided to build a fancy castle. The better part of the next hour was spent focusing on your own work. The boys were the same. Even Shiloh didn't sneak as many peeks at everyone else as he usually did. Oh, cool. You finished shaping before either of them did, glancing up from what you'd built. It seems you got done so fast because they'd already searched around for extra decorations. Shiloh had grabbed most of the really interesting stuff, and Cove had a lot of the shells, but there were still options. The first thing you reached for was a bottle cap, seashell, a sea glass. Ooh, that's cool. It was the best fit for your castle, you decided. It was see-through and sparkly, so you put it in a funny place where it'd take a second look to see it. Pleased with your result, you finally took a proper look around that wasn't focused on the sand itself. Both Cove and Shiloh seemed super immersed still. You knew you could probably sneak a peek at either one's work. I want to look at Cove's sandcastle. The castle Cove had built looked surprisingly tidy, especially for someone in a cast. He must have worked really hard. He wasn't even finished digging the huge gaping moat in front, but it was already enormous. You got the sense from the enthusiasm he was digging with that the doctor was probably going to find a bunch of sand when he finally removed the pink plaster. Then the silence was broken. What's on the top of yours, Shiloh? You peeked closer and discovered something shiny sticking out of Shiloh's sand chimney. Oh, It's just a gum wrapper. It looks like smoke.
Neat.
It's good. That's smart. Aw, you should be an architect. You'd be good at it, Shiloh. Shiloh smiled without a word. And that was that for the current topic. Basil, can I see what you did? Sure. He scooted just a bit nearer and began surveying your work. The castle you'd built was pretty impressive, all things considered. It had archways, tall walls, and even a little moat circling it. You would probably feel safe living there. Maybe your moms were the queens. Shiloh quickly decided to jump in the new conversation. Hey Basil, what did you do? This is my castle. Shiloh didn't look so happy anymore. Oh, you both built castles? Oh no! Did I make this poor baby feel left out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Shiloh, I'm so sorry, baby. Aw, that's neat. How you guys match. It's too bad we didn't all do it. Next time we should. Wouldn't that be boring? If it's something that only if something is the only one of that thing, then that makes it special. Yeah, for sandcastles and stuff. People too. My dad always says how everybody is their own man, a real individual. I don't think I'm very special. Shiloh, baby. Sweetheart. Honey, who told you that? Stop it.
Why?
Why not? Nobody else is you. Shiloh simply shook his head. I'm not different. A beat passed between the two. Cove then looked down at his own work again. Hmm. Okay. Oh. He's 8 years old. He's 8 years old. He's 8 years old. It's fine. He's 8 years old. He's. Oh my god, Cove. He didn't seem to be bothered leaving the disagreement hanging there. Cove had other things on his mind. My dad tried to get me to make sandcastles the first time we came to this beach. I didn't want to. Cove trailed off again. Trailed off. Again, there was another moment of silence. Shiloh shifted and opened his mouth to say something, but Cove spoke up before he could. You didn't think he noticed that Shiloh was going to talk. Hey, do you know what happened to your mom when your moms met my dad, Basil? You waited to see if Shiloh would say what he wanted to. When he didn't, you considered to quote Cove's question. Cove, you just talked over him. Ugh. I wasn't there. They didn't tell me. I just remember what happened when I met your dad. Mr. Holden had been a weird stranger then. Well, he was still kind of strange. No other parent acted like him, but you knew him better at this point. Now that you thought about it, it made a lot of sense that Cove's dad talked to him about people being unique. You were pulled from your thoughts when Cove continued. Oh, well, I was there. I don't think my mom has met your dad. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she hasn't. Basil's parents and my dad met the same day I met him. I'm sure I'm gonna say what happened. Shiloh frowned to himself, ducking his head. Aw, aw. His hat cast a shadow over his face. You could still tell he was upset at not being included in Cove's choice of topic. That was kind of boring for him, though people giving their own turn to say the things they want is important too. Well, he is in the middle of the story. Shiloh could talk about stuff after Cove had a chance to share what he planned on. When we moved here, we didn't bring a lot of things with us, only some stuff that would fit in Dad's car. We didn't even get a moving truck. I sat in there while Dad brought it all inside. I didn't want to get out because I knew Dad would make me look around the new house. I really didn't want to do that. His lips twisted into a frown as he recalled that. Then I saw your moms. They were in a car too and stopped at your house. I guess they were coming back from somewhere or something. My dad noticed. He waved his hand and then went over to the front of your house where he started talking to them. I don't know what they said. I couldn't hear it. But he couldn't see me anymore since he was looking the other way. So I opened the car door and left. I wanted to get away and went behind the houses. I found those hills there, the ones where we met for the first time. I feel kind of bad because I feel like he really did just talk over Shiloh, but I don't know if it's gonna go back to Shiloh or not. Probably not. Cove nodded, then stared at you. You stared back. He didn't go on to say anything more. Aren't you gonna finish your story? Pff, Cove's brow wrinkled, like he didn't understand why you were
Huh?
surprised. That's all that happened. Alright, thanks for telling me, I guess. You're welcome. Even if not much help happened, you're not going to complain about knowing the story. Shiloh's mouth twisted into a scowl of disbelief, but he said nothing. Why'd you bring that up anyway? There was a slight shrug of Cove's shoulders. I was thinking about it because of the sandcastle. It made me remember when I moved to here. Dad showed me the beach first before we went back to the car to unpack. He was really excited about it for some reason. Cove's brows furrowed a little more as he quietly raked his hand through the sand. I get it. You thought maybe Mr. Holden wasn't that excited about the beach and was instead hoping Cove might be. But the line of conversation had come to its end. Even Cove was done with it. Some other topic had popped into his head. Shiloh fidgeting uncomfortably in the sand had made Cove aware of his presence again. They looked at each other and you could only wonder what this might be about. Hey, Shiloh? Yeah? Why are you always turning so red? Even when nothing is happening? Cove, you can't just ask people why they're red. Oh my god. Clearly startled, he jerked back. Neither you or Shiloh had expected that to be how he got included in the conversation again. Cove, that's so mean. I don't know, I guess. Okay, it's kind of Cove. Oh my god. Oh, poor kid. You're bullying him. You're bullying this little baby. Shiloh's eyes were wide with embarrassment and his lips twitched, and he was blushing even harder than before. Maybe it wasn't only this. Perhaps this was. Aww. Aww. Maybe it wasn't only this. Perhaps it was simply the last straw, but it was a big deal to Shiloh, a huge deal. He didn't just look sad, he seemed almost panicked. You weren't sure if he was about to cry or run away or what, but you soon got an answer. Why do you wear glasses? Most kids don't wear glasses, and nobody is named Cove. Who asked you to come? It was probably just your dad bugging Basil's family some more because you don't have anyone else who will ever play with you. Um, Cove blinked. The tension on the beach was suddenly uncomfortable in a way you didn't know how to laugh off. It didn't seem like the kind of thing he'd get upset about, though you hadn't ever known what kind of thing would bother Shiloh. I'm sorry. Me too. I was just wondering. Oof. I'm gonna just mess around with the sand. You picked up some sand and turned it over in your hands. There didn't seem to be much you could do to stop the fight, and you weren't sure what to do with yourself. Cove looked over at what you were doing and started building his own set of walls. Shiloh took a breath before kneeling back down to his patch of sand. It seemed they both decided to try playing again. You were glad for that. You all went back to making more sand buildings, but the whole mood had changed. Shiloh's cheeriness was clearly gone, and Cove looked as confused as ever about why the other boy had blown up. It was because you were inconsiderate! Oh my god. The air stayed uncomfortable the rest of the afternoon, right up to the moment that Shiloh's mom appeared at the beach to take him home. Cove and Shiloh had mostly followed your lead and barely said a word. His mom standing behind him, even Shiloh's quiet goodbye had been quiet, friendly, cheerful, but noticeably quiet. But with Shiloh gone and the sun going down, you knew it was time for you and Cove to head to your own houses. The two of you trailed out of the park together toward the neighborhood. The walk home was quiet. You passed by familiar landmarks, shoes thumping against the sidewalks in near perfect unison. Cove was clearly caught up in thinking about something. I want to ask him. Something was definitely up, so you chose to reach out to him and ask. Hey Cove, is everything okay? You're making a funny face. Oh, I was just wondering. Cove fell silent again for a few more seconds, then sighed. Why'd Shiloh act like that when I said he was all red a lot? Okay, I don't think he was being a baby. I don't want to say he was just Shiloh. He gets embarrassed. You shouldn't be make fun of him. You were being rude to him. He gets embarrassed. Embarrassed, but I didn't say anything that bad. It might have upset him anyway. Hmm. I guess I can get it why he would do that. Sometimes I get really mad too. Despite seemingly coming to a conclusion, Cove's mood was still sour. Hey Basil, was Shiloh telling the truth? Huh? His gaze left yours as he dug the sole of his shoe into the ground. He looked oddly vulnerable for a second. Does my dad make you hang out with me? I know he talks to your moms about that a lot. An uncomfortable weight settled in your chest at the question. You liked spending time with Cove. You didn't even have to think hard about it. You knew you did. But you couldn't help feeling guilty. Cove still didn't know what happened when you met Mr. Holden. Hmm. Oh no. Oh no. I'm an 8-year old, okay? Hang on, hang on. Basil is 8 years old. Basil is 8 years old, and his friend is upset and thinks that nobody wants to hang out with him. An 8-year old is going to lie. Cove's shoulders relaxed. You hadn't even noticed that he had tensed up. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Anyway, I don't think you were pretending. I just wanted to make sure it was okay is all. Thanks for telling me. Your throat tightened. It was Woo! It was hard to meet Cove's earnest gaze again. Keeping secrets was hard. You're welcome. By now, the two of you were on the sidewalk near your houses. It was time to part ways. Then nudged his shoulder. You reached over and gave Cove a fond push forward. Bye. See you tomorrow. He laughed a little and playfully pushed your hand back. He didn't mind the bit of rowdiness after all. Bye. Then you jogged towards your house. When you looked back, you saw Cove making his way back home too. As if he felt your eyes on him, he turned around. He waved. You did too. You felt a little unsure with what you were supposed to do about the deal Cove's dad had offered. You didn't want to say something bad or something you shouldn't. You had no idea how Cove would take it either. Would it be terrible if it would be terrible if it made him feel bad? What if he didn't want to play with you anymore? You might change your mind sometime, but there was always tomorrow after all. But for now, it was definitely something you'd keep to yourself. With a final look, you went inside your house. Woof! Woof! Okay, that was a long day. Let's go for something that's probably a little bit lighter, lighthearted. Whew. Come back before it gets dark, all right, sport? The familiar voice drifted across the street and drew your attention away from the snail you'd been watching inch slowly across the pavement. Cove waited in front of his dad, um, pushing his green hair back off his face from where the breeze was blowing it over his glasses. He looked to be paying only a mild amount of attention as he was being handed a few slips of green paper. It reminded you of when you first met Mr. Holden, although he's probably not paying Cove to be friends with himself. Cove's dad seemed to feel your gaze somehow, or maybe you made a noise, because a second later his eyes were on you. He waved you over with a smile. He looked happy to see you, but you still felt a little weird for getting caught. You've got to learn how to be more sneaky. You brushed your hands together to free them of sand, then jogged over to join the two, smiling at Cove first, then his dad. Basil, hi. Good to see you again. What excitement are you up to today, Basil? Taking a walk? I found a pretty cool snail across the road. There's lots of snails around here. Mr. Holden grinned at you kindly. After you finished answering the question, Mr. Holden's attention returned to Cove, who was preoccupied with folding the bills he had into a tiny rectangle. Sounds fun. You know, Cove was about to hit the stores by the beach. Why don't you go with him? You gave a ready nod, turning to squint in the direction of the stores, like you could see the goods they had to offer, all the way from where you stood. Oh, is that okay? I don't mind. Great, I'm sure you guys will have loads of fun. Call this retail therapy. Uh, Mr. Holden reached into his pocket and pulled out a leather wallet filled with money. You found it odd, since your mom's only ever seemed to have cards in theirs. Here. He leaned in to pass a crisp 10 to Cove, giving him a wink and a whisper. Get something for your friend, too. Sure. That's my boy. Cove's dad ruffled his son's hair as he was straightening back up, the bill in his hand still held out towards the green-haired boy. Take care. Cove accepted the bill after a second and slipped it into his pocket. Then with one last nod to his dad, he turned and started walking. You followed after him, intrigued at the possibilities this outing might bring. Cove strayed towards the gentle tide creeping up the sand, and you fell into a place beside him. It was a nice day, the sun was shining, and there weren't many clouds in the sky, though the wind coming off the ocean kept it from being too hot. You took in a deep breath, enjoying the scent of salt and ocean air. When you looked at Cove, he was dragging his feet through the sand a little, and you slowed down to wait for him. His eyes searched the ground intently. Are you looking for shells? Cove startled a little at the sound of your voice and mumbled a sort of, if you see any, you can let me know. You could manage that. You dropped your view to the sand, walking carefully so you didn't step on any. You were good at finding shells. You had a lot of them at home, and always found new ones whenever you visited the beach. The comforting sound of the waves filled the silence with pleasant white noise, and you played a little game with yourself as you walked along, getting as close to the water as possible without getting wet. It resulted in you having to run up the sand quickly when a wave rushed in more than a few times, and although Cove threw a few glances your way, he didn't say a word. You didn't either. He seemed altogether too invested in the floor to pay attention. You decided to watch the waves as they inched closer and closer to your feet instead. Oh! Abruptly, Cove stopped, then moved briskly ahead a few steps. What is it? Without a word, he bent down, picking something up half buried in the sand. You hurried nearer, curiously glancing over his shoulder. It was a shell, lightly pink at the bottom and bleached white at the top. Wow, so you found what you were looking for? Oh. Cove got back up, turning his find over in his hands before unbuttoning one of the pockets in his pants and sliding it inside. I pick up anything that's kind of cool. This is what I got this time. What about you? What do you do out here? Let's see. I like looking at the fish. They don't like me, so they always swim away if I get close, but they're pretty before that. Cool. Starfish are fun. They aren't going anywhere, even if you touch them. A small laugh escaped you. That's true. Once you reached the shopping area, the noise level grew exponentially. No longer just waves and footsteps, but the chatter of people enjoying the lovely summer day, the call of birds trying to find bits of food left behind, and lots of salespeople trying to get attention. You sniffed the air as you walked beside Cove. You could still smell the ocean, but there were other scents now, too. Pizza, pretzels, hot donuts. It's alright. There was a lot going on, but it beat staying at home and doing nothing at all. You were sure that you and Cove could find something to fill the day if you looked around a bit. Cove was glancing from one side of the street to the other with a look in his aquamarine eyes that you couldn't quite work out. What's that? Cove pointed to a large crowd of people gathered near a few tables with large colorful umbrellas blooming from their middles. You couldn't see past the adults who were blocking the way, but you knew there must be something worth seeing. Without another word, the two of you hurried over to see what all the commotion was about. Amazing Alexander! Feast your eyes on the amazing Alexander! In the center of the crowd was a man with a tall hat and a funny green coat that had 3 long tails. There was a little table next to him with a cloth hanging over it that read "The Amazing Alexander" in glittery golden script. Why tell people his name if it's already on a sign? Cove hummed with understanding, then turned to walk away just as the amazing Alexander began shuffling a deck of cards. Maybe we could stay and watch? Cove glanced back at the man. He then briefly lifted his arms up off his sides before returning them to place. You grinned, waving for him to follow you as you raced back to stand in the crowd. With that, it began. The magic man pulled one card out of the deck, showing it to the curious onlookers. It was a 4 of diamonds. Watch closely. You did, squeezing through a few of the adult onlookers to get a better view. Suddenly, the man snapped his fingers, and the card just disappeared. Whoa! He's not. This boy is just not interested. The amazing Alexander, who had earned his title, turned his head and looked directly at you. He reached out with a kind smile. What's this behind your ear? Nothing? It was true. You didn't keep anything there. He smelled like popcorn and candy when he stepped closer, and you wrinkled your nose in confusion as you watched him. You felt a tug, and then he pulled the 4 of diamonds out from behind your ear. You didn't know. You knew that it couldn't really have come from your ear, but you still didn't know how he'd done it. There was a light applause from the crowd, and the man gave a deep bow. This is for you. The magician plucked a pair of balloons from a clump of them tied down to his table. Both were in the shape of a dolphin instead of being a normal circle. And one for your friend, too. Thank you for being my assistant. Wow. Now you were really grateful he chose you. After that, he went to someone else in the crowd. Pick a card, any card. My uncle does that every time he visits. Not the balloons, the stuff with the cards. Cove spoke plainly while reaching over to take the dolphin that had been designated for him. At least I had a fun time. You saw a magic trick and you got a great balloon. It was more than enough to make it a worthwhile event. You thought if you could find a card to practice with, maybe you could make it disappear too. The crowd started to clear and some and you noticed to the side there was a whole rack of brightly colored kaleidoscopes on display. Let's see a Rubik's Cube. Ooh, these are cool. Will you hold my balloon while I look at this? Cove nodded, taking your balloon and holding it in the same hand as his own so you could get a good grip on the cube. He stood next to you and watched as you attempted to match the colored rows. You managed to line up all the green squares on one side of the cube, but there were still 5 more sides to go. Deciding that was something you should continue another time, you set the cube back on the rack and took your balloon from Cove, who moved to the other side of the stall. He went under the awning, careful of his own floating dolphin, and you joined him. Did you have places like this in your old town? Cove blinked at you for a moment and you wondered if you shouldn't have asked. You knew how much he missed that place. Not really. You nodded in understanding, looking over at the stalls nearby. Aww. While Cove looked at sand pails, you were drawn to a table with colorful keychains laid out. They were sewn in the shape of sea creatures, and there was a plaque that read "Handmade" standing proudly in front. There were lots of different types. You saw a dolphin, a shark, a crab, a turtle. Well, Basil told a story about a crab earlier, so I think I'll do the crab. Your hand stopped on the crab, claws raised and a tiny smile on its face. It had big eyes and little legs, and the fabric was smooth when you picked it up. You had seen a few crabs at the beach before, though they usually scuttled away before you got a chance to look at them closely. You liked the idea of having a crab all of your own, even if it was just a soft animal. You were instantly enamored. Checking the price, though, your heart fell. $6. You didn't know much about money, but you thought that was a lot to spend on one thing. You rarely had more than a $5 bill to your name. Though that changed the day you met Cove and his dad. You still had the $20 bill Mr. Holden gave to you hidden away in your room. It was a grand sum of money, but you couldn't spend something that was at home instead of in your pocket. Maybe you'd have to ask your moms to bring you here again one day, now that you knew what you wanted. Is that what you want? Huh? Oh, it's $6. I didn't bring any money.
Alright.
It's fine. Oh, you don't have to. Cove didn't mind that. He took the keychain from your hands, and that was that. He was holding a small yellow bucket for himself, too. I was always going to get you something. I already got the money for it. You smiled, pleased to have things worked out. It was nice of Cove's dad to let Cove buy something for you, too. You had to remember to thank him next time you saw him. After Cove paid, the two of you stepped out of the store side by side, your balloon dolphins knocking together and spiraling around in the air. That's so cute. Oh my god. You watched Cove hold up his new pail to his face, examining it thoroughly. Hey, Cove? Yeah? I really like this keychain. Thank you. It's nice. Cove looked further down the street where different food carts were lined up. He rested his non-cast arm over his stomach, and just as he did, yours let out a light growl. You hadn't eaten since breakfast, and after all this wandering around, you were definitely ready for some lunch. Let's get some food. Yeah. You two wandered around a short while looking at all the delicacies that were available. Everything looked delicious, and as the different smells, both sweet and salty, wafted over to you, your stomach growled even louder. After passing up hot dogs, snow cones, ice cream, and pizza, you both agreed on pretzels. Oh, like the icon for this. Cove got something sweet and cinnamony, and you got a plain one. You licked your lips hungrily as the vendor handed over your pretzel, ready to take a big bite. It had a little sprinkling of salt on it, and that was just how you liked it. Though that little cup of icing Cove got with his did look delicious. You found an empty table close enough to the beach that the grit of the sand made terrible noises when you dragged the chairs out to sit down. Those balloons are going to make it hard to eat. Cove placed his bucket on the table as he stared at his still balled up hand that was wrapped around the string. You opened your mouth to agree before an idea hit you. I know. After carefully Oh no! Okay, after carefully placing your pretzel somewhere where it wouldn't get sandy, you tugged the balloon dolphin out of Cove's hand and tied it in a delicate bow around his wrist.
Oh.
Oh! Cove bounced his arm up and down in place, testing the stability of your knot. After watching his balloon jostle around but remain attached, he smiled, satisfied. Can you do it for me? He repeated the ritual. Cove struggled somewhat with the cast restricting his fingers on one hand and a string already tangled around the other. Got it. The two of you spent a moment admiring your handiwork, both hands now free to allow easy munching on your pretzels. You bit into the doughy treat, savoring the taste on your tongue with a smile as you looked out over the ocean. After a time, you finished your pretzels. You were done before Cove. It was boring not to have anything to do. You pulled on the string of your balloon to bring it down to your level. Then you held the dolphin in your hands, manipulating it to look like it was jumping through the air. If you turned to face the beach, it almost looked like it was swimming in the waves like a real dolphin. A laugh came from your side. Aww. When you glanced back at Cove, he had left the remaining parts of his pretzel on the wrapper and was gripping his dolphin too. Okay. So we've got Meriwether, the Prince of the Dolphins. Splash, they star in movies. Cherry, she's actually an alien. Sam, just a regular dolphin. I think that's really funny. Mine's a Sam, just a regular dolphin. You sighed, thinking about how great it would be to have a pet dolphin of your own. What's yours? Cove considered this question, placing the balloon against the table and resting his free arm across it in contemplation. It's... Oh! With a loud pop, The dolphin exploded into ribbons. It's dead. Uh, oh no. For a second, all Cove did was gape in shock like you. Then his cheeks puffed up, squinting his eyes, and you saw tears start to glisten. Basil, it. Aww. Give him a. You looked at Cove, then up to your balloon, bobbing gently in the air above you. You can have mine. That was better than letting him cry more. Cove sniffled, glancing up at the balloon, then back at you. No, it's yours. I don't want to take it from you. It's okay, really. Cove shook his head. Even though it wasn't your fault, you felt bad. Still, the offer seemed to lift Cove's spirit, and that was good. The passing of Cove's balloon was the last major event of your adventure. In the end, the two of you headed back late that afternoon. You separated on the beach, and while Cove went straight home with his brand new sand pail in hand, you decided to sit for a while. You watched the waves and the sunset, fiddling with your new keychain. Another summer day was drawing to a close. It had been a good one, except for the sad final note. Aww. Okay, I know that I want to do the fireflies last. I think I want to do grown up, then long day, then fireflies. One sweltering summer day, you were in your living room with Cove, listening to the sounds of the birds chattering outside the window while you lay across the rug on the floor. Cove's dad had dropped him off earlier, and your moms had left the two of you, along with Lizzie, to play amongst yourselves. It had been too hot to go outside in the afternoon, at least according to Mommy, so your sister was starting to get impatient waiting for her golf class that evening. Golf class? What? Okay. The three of you had had trouble finding something fun to do. The beach and the playground were off limits, and you felt that it was too warm for anything like playing with your fuzzy toy animals. Then suddenly a light came to Lizzie's big brown eyes, and her smile spread wide across her face. Having an idea gave her a new wave of energy. Since we're stuck inside, we should be adults. They don't play outdoors anyways. They're always stuck inside and telling everybody they're too busy to play. Why? I said why, and it'll be fun. Duh. What do they do inside that we don't, besides use the phone a lot? Ex- ex- Excluding a small huff, Lizzie decides to ignore Cove. Basil, what do you think? Do you want to? I don't know. Please, Basil. When have I ever had a bad idea? Whenever we play with you. Cove. Oh my god. Cove is such a brat. Why is he the love interest? I wasn't asking you. I'll try it, but that sounds boring. It's not gonna be, I guarantee. Lizzie seemed more determined than ever, and you could only sigh. Satisfied that neither of you were about to bail on her, Lizzie thought over her options while you watched. After a few seconds, she clapped her hands together and beamed, apparently having settled on something without asking either of you. Okay, I'm going to be a professional golfer. Basil, you and Cove can be a beach volleyball player, a gymnast, or a tennis player. Why can't we pick anything we want? Because I have a fun idea, that's why. And we have to play sports as adults? Yup. But there's other kinds of sports too. It isn't the same. What do you think, Basil? Don't those choices sound super cool? You want to be that, huh? Isn't there anything else we can be? Lizzie stomped a foot on the ground. Nope. Come on, just decide already. Knowing Lizzie wouldn't let this go anytime soon, you sighed. Cove was not impressed with Lizzie's attitude, though he didn't bother talking more about it for now. You thought over the list of possibilities: beach volleyball, gymnastics, or tennis. Out of all of them, you'd prefer to play gymnastics? If you couldn't spend the afternoon doing cartwheels and handstands in the backyard, you might as well practice them in. Oh no. Oh no, I just said an 8-year-old's gonna do gymnastics, which means they're gonna. Oh no. There wouldn't be as much space as there was outside, but you could still try. Yes, that was clearly the top option. That was clearly the worst option. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna be a gymnast. All right. How about you, Cove? I pick volleyball. I should have known. What does that mean, Lizzie? Okay, so Basil, you're a famous gymnast, and Cove, you're on a popular beach volleyball team. And Lizzie's ponytail bobbed when she proudly stretched her arms wide. We're Olympic athletes who just competed in the Olympics. Cove didn't seem all that impressed with the announcement. He made a face and adjusted the glasses on his nose. That's really specific. That's what makes it fun. Anyway, Lizzie marched back and forth in front of the both of you, getting lost in her own imagination. I won all gold medals, and people are calling me the next Mickey Wright. I have no idea who that is. Who's that? Lizzie stomped on the spot and turned on him, her brown eyes shining with impatience. It doesn't matter if you know who she is. It's a golf thing. You guys won medals too. Cove, your team was Cove, your team was bronze, and Basil, you barely missed out on the gold and got silver. It's more real if we're not all in first place. Silver's not bad. Nice. Actually, fun fact, um, they've done like was it a study or just like a survey or whatever? I don't know. Basically, it's pretty common for silver medalists to actually be less happy than bronze medalists because like the general idea is that bronze medalists are happy that they placed essentially, and but silver medalists, because they're second place, feel like they were like that close to gold and they missed it. It may not be first place, but you knew that silver medals were still really good to get at the Olympics. But it isn't gold. Lots of people lose at the Olympics. Them's the breaks. I'm a, I'm assuming she's like 10 because she's not that much bigger than Cove, and Cove is 8. And also like so I'm assuming she's like 10, and it's not uncommon for girls to like get their growth spurts a little bit younger than boys do. Um so like I'm assuming that she's like 10. So she's like only 2 years. Why is a 10-year-old saying them's the breaks? Then you're the one who did, not me. Lizzie looked taken aback by Cove's declaration, as though the thought of her losing was completely absurd. Bloop, bloop. No way, it wouldn't make sense. I'm already practicing my golf game. She took a golfing stance to make her point, pretending to swing her club and hit an invisible ball. So what kind of house do you want to live in? Cove hadn't changed his mind about winning, but thinking about where he'd live as an adult appealed to him, apparently, because he looked back at Lizzie with some of the anger fading. I'm going to live on the beach. Lizzie made a face at him, poking out her tongue. Bruh, that's kind of boring. We already have that. No, not like the normal houses here on the street. On it, right on the sand, by the water. Just like that, all the tension was back. You hadn't even had a chance to choose where you want to live. That's not very fun or smart, Cove. You can't live on a bunch of sand and shells. But I want to, and I will. Cove narrowed his eyes at Lizzie, even though she stood half a head taller than him. You didn't give out a list of things to pick from this time, so I'm picking that. Why are we even playing pretend if we can't imagine anything? Geez, well, I'm gonna live in a mansion far away from here and far away from you. One with an indoor pool and a place to practice my award-winning golfing. How come you were yelling about mine when your idea was even more impossible? Ooh. Lizzie's face flushed red, her hands balling into fists at her sides. It's not impossible, and it's better than yours. Oh my god. Cove, why are you starting so many fights? Disagreements always seemed to crop up when the two of them were together, and you always felt like you were stuck in the middle. But when it came to the topic at hand this time, you thought that being on the beach was cooler. Who wouldn't want to live on the beach? It'd be really great. You could have windows made from driftwood and seashell wind chimes. Ugh. He smiled lightly over the agreement, then turned to Lizzie with bolstered confidence. You can swim whenever you want if you live on the beach. We can still swim anytime we want from where we live now. Being a little closer doesn't mean anything. Says you. Oh my god. The two of them scowled at each other. You're being so unreasonable. I don't get what you want. This game doesn't make sense. It does. You have to be realistic. I said that. But you're not. Oh my god. This is supposed to be a dating sim. You had no idea what to do to make them stop at this point. It seemed like the two of them would just keep working each other up as long as they could. Nothing you'd said so far had kept them from being mad. Thankfully, like a greeting card angel, Mom walked into the room. Lizzie rushed over to her, hanging onto the hem of her shirt and poking out her tongue at Cove. Lizzie, Basil, it's time to get ready to go. Sorry you have to leave already, Cove. Their mommy said she'll walk you home so you won't be left in the cold. Cove was still glaring at Lizzie, his face flushed red with anger. I can go by myself. But, bye, Basil. There was still a harsh edge to the brief farewell, but you knew it wasn't. You knew it wasn't you he was mad at. Without giving Mom a chance to stop him, Cove stood up and stalked out of the room, shoulders drawn tight. Okay? Worried, Mom turned to look at you and Lizzie. You two were playing nice with our new friend, weren't you? I'm telling the truth. We were playing pretend and things got intense. They were like cats and dogs. Your sister's jaw dropped, looking betrayed as Mom put both hands on her hips. Elizabeth! I told you to be kind to him. He's having a hard time right now. Lizzie's mouth closed back up, replaced by a tiny frown. I know, I tried, but he was no buts. We both know you can show someone a great time when you put your mind to it. We're going to apologize to Cove and his dad over the phone when he gets home from work tonight. Lizzie hung her head, dragging a foot across the ground in front of her. Okay, Mom. Good girl. You caught pieces of Lizzie sulking to herself about how it was his fault too, but it was over. All right, we better get a move on. Let's go, kids. Neolani. No, no, wait, is it? No, 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 not Neo. It's Noelani. Noelani, where did you leave the car keys? Mom hustled you all out the door, and you noticed during the car ride to golf practice that Lizzie was quieter than usual. She was usually the first one to request which music to listen to in the car, but she didn't say a thing. Your parents noticed she wasn't in a mood to be bothered. They gave her space, and Mommy just asked you what you'd like to listen to. Hmm. I feel kind of bad. I chose a song that you knew. You chose a song that you knew Lizzie liked. Maybe that would cheer her up. You were happy to see it brighten her up right away, and she started singing along with you. Soon enough, her bad mood was a thing of the past. When the car ride was over, you spent the twilight hour watching Lizzie hit things with the other girls at her age. You didn't know much about golf, but you could tell that she really liked it, so you sat with your moms and tried to puzzle it out. It was nice sitting outside after being cooped up in the house all day, and you stretched out your legs to let the last few minutes of sun warm your skin. When the sun was finally out of sight, dipping behind the horizon, you all got ready to leave. Instead of going straight home, your moms took the family out to dinner. You went to a restaurant you had all been going to ever since you could remember. The whole afternoon had been a bunch of shouting. You hadn't been able to stop, but you could kind of tell that all this helped Lizzie be less angry. The car ride home was quiet, with only the radio providing escape from silence. Lizzie had been in a better spirits now, but the closer you got to your neighborhood, the more she wiggled in her seat and frowned out the window. She knew what was coming when you all got home. Clearly, she was dreading it. Soon enough, Mom was turning it onto your street, then reversing into the driveway. Once she cut the ignition, it was dead silent. No one spoke, only unbuckled their seatbelts and opened their doors. Lizzie was the last one out. Once everyone was inside and done taking off their shoes, she propped her hands on her hips. Now then, Mr. Holden's car is in his driveway, so he should be back from work. That's good news, isn't it, Elizabeth? You and Cove can hash things out before the day is done. Lizzie didn't complain or put up a fight. Her head ducked so she didn't have to meet anyone's eyes. She nodded once. Good, let's move this to the kitchen. Mom went over to the house phone, the rest of you following behind her. Mommy put a gentle hand on Lizzie's shoulder as they walked side by side. You watched them from the back. This was only happening because you told on Oh my god, because you told on Lizzie. Oh my god. See, that feels weird. Like that feels weird. Like it was her fault for doing it in the first place. She's a kid. Kids get into stupid arguments. I don't think it's her fault so much as like uh, like an 8-year-old is whatever. You can still remember the look on Lizzie's face. There was no doubt she felt that way about it. You and your sister didn't always get along, but you cared about each other. This wouldn't change that, you thought. The four of you stood around the kitchen in a lopsided square. All eyes were on Lizzie, who kept her gaze on her feet. You remember the number for Cove's house, don't you, honey? Lizzie jerked her head in another sullen nod. Without further prompting, she stepped forward and began to dial. Mom reached over and pressed a button on the base. Suddenly, you could hear the phone ringing. She turned on the speaker. Oh my god. What is with this public embarrassment? The phone rang a couple of times, then stopped. Mr. Holden's warm voice came through the other end. Evening, Holden residence. Lizzie looked over at Mommy, unsure. She nodded encouragingly.
Aw.
Hi, Mr. Holden. It's Lizzie. Can I talk to Cove? Lizzie Leaf? Okay, that's so cute. Like I know that I'm the one that picked the name Leaf because Basil Leaf, but Lizzie Leaf is so cute. Lizzie Leaf is so cute. Okay, sorry. Lizzie Leaf, what a surprise. But of course you can say hey to the boy. He sounded cheery as usual, though definitely meant it when he said he was it was a surprise. You thought hard, and you were sure that your sister had never called Cove's house before. Mom spoke up before Mr. Holden or Lizzie could say anything more. Her arms were crossed over her chest, her lips pursed. Hi, Cliff. I literally just hashed out this pronunciation. Noelani, Basil, and I are here too. Good evening. We're sorry to bother you so late. Hi, Mr. Holden. The gang's all here, huh? Is something the matter? His voice grew a bit concerned. Mommy was quick to reassure him. Well, no, well, yes, but it's going to be okay. Lizzie and Cove got into a bit of a fight today. We were hoping that the two of them could talk and make up. Is this a good time for you and Cove? A fight? Cove didn't tell me anything about that when I came home. It does explain the funk he's been in tonight. He chuckled lightly. Despite that, it didn't seem like he really thought it was funny. Anyway, it's good. You didn't catch us at a bad time. I'll grab him for you. There was some shuffling on the other end. He must not have gone far because you could still hear him calling out. Cove, there's someone on the phone for you. After a beat of silence, there was more muffled talking from Cove's dad. Come on, Buzzy. Lizzie called just so she could talk to you. Basil's on the other end listening too. Don't you want to say hi? It took a bit of back and forth, though the conversation seemed one-sided since you couldn't hear Cove properly. Eventually, Cove took the phone from his dad. Hello? Hey, it's Lizzie. Yeah, I know, Dad told me. Cove's tone was defensive. Lizzie turned to Mom, scowling. One stern look from her, though, and Lizzie turned away.
Sorry.
I just called to say, I'm sorry for not playing nice with you today. I won't do it again. Lizzie's eyes were downcast, her voice low. You could tell she felt uncomfortable apologizing to Cove in front of everyone. She was still being genuine about feeling bad. Cove must have realized that too, because he sighed quietly. I want gold, and I think Basil should win too. Really? He thought you were worth gold even though you hadn't even really wanted it? Lizzie was momentarily stunned silent by the demand. She probably forgot she probably forgot that had even happened already. All right, we all win the gold. Okay, I guess I'm sorry too. A sense of relief washed over everyone at his acceptance of the apology. Mom uncrossed her arms while Mommy's shoulders relaxed. Lizzie's eyebrows raised up. You wondered if she thought he'd refuse her apology. Dad, can I get off the phone now? You couldn't see him, but it was obvious that Cove felt awkward about the situation. He had come off uncomfortable the entire time, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go back to your room if you want. Be sure to say goodbye first, though. Um, bye, Lizzie. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Basil. He perked up at the mention of your name. You smiled, even if he couldn't see it. Bye, Cove. With that, Cove must have handed the phone to his dad and left, since Mr. Holden spoke up.
That's a relief.
All's well that ends well, as they say. Thanks for arranging this. I'm sure he appreciates it. As Mom replied, Lizzie tugged on Mommy's hand to catch her attention. Can I go too now?
Good job.
Sure, sweetie. Thank you very much for apologizing to Cove. Mom flashed a brief smile at Lizzie and nodded her agreement. Given permission to leave, Lizzie scurried off towards the stairs. She seemed to be feeling much better with the incident behind her. Mom and Mommy returned to the phone, taking it off the speaker. They continued talking to Mr. Holden. You couldn't tell what about. You were glad that was the end of all of it. Or was it? Lizzie and Cove might not get along, and probably still won't, but they weren't mad at each other anymore. Mom and Mommy weren't upset either. Everything was finally back to normal. With that thought, you retreated to your own room and with a spring in your step. Okay, let's go. Long day. I should save this. I don't know how long it's been since I saved. A while. It's been a while since I saved. Long day. It was another scorching summer day, the kind where no sooner had you finished one cup of water, you were already filling it up again. Everyone else had something on, so that afternoon it was just you and Shiloh. This didn't happen much, especially since Cove had arrived. Without Lizzie around, Shiloh looked to you for all the answers. It made you feel nothing really. Shiloh went along with whatever you wanted, so he wasn't a bother, but he also wasn't that much fun. You drained yet another drink and frowned at the empty vessel. Your thirst was gone, but you still craved something icy cold and refreshing. Something sweet. Something like I do like popsicles. You wanted something fruity and brightly colored. There was nothing like that to be found at home. You knew that without needing to look. Your moms didn't keep sweets in the house. Outside, there were plenty of places where such goodies could be obtained, but they were shops and demanded payment in exchange for their products. You sighed. As much as you really wanted that treat, it wasn't going to happen. What's wrong? I want a popsicle. Shiloh, who had been draped over the sofa, perked up. That sounds good. We don't have any here, and I don't have any money. Uh, what do you mean you don't have any money, Basil? You got 20 bucks. Oh, let me check if I have any. Shiloh rummaged in his backpack and proudly produced an assortment of coins, plus one stray button. You set the button aside and counted the coins in neat piles, just over $1. You announced this to Shiloh. He had almost certainly come to the same conclusion, but he had been watching you expectantly. I guess if the start is more positive. Shiloh beamed at you. We'll need to find some more. Okay. The two of you lifted the couch cushions, stuck tiny hands deep in crevices in the sofa and under furniture, and scoured the back of drawers. Most of what you found was useless or gross. Bent paper clips, fluffy wisps of dust or sandy crumbs, but every so often one of you would strike silver or bronze and add it to the growing pile of coins. Your mind wandered to the $20 bill tucked away in your room. It was enough for you and Shiloh to get whatever you wanted and more, but you didn't take it out. That was too special to hand over so freely. Besides, Shiloh would be curious about where it came from and might even mention your wealth to Lizzie. The exchange had been a secret. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Dusty and disheveled from checking every room and squinting into every tiny nook, the two of you finished pooling your finds. Shiloh held his breath as you counted the coins once again. $2.53 and two buttons. You didn't know when the second button had decided to join the party, but you were too pleased with your successful haul to throw it out. Is that enough? You figured he knew the answer without looking to you for confirmation, but the thrill of your success and the reward that would follow canceled out any other feelings you might have had about that. Yeah. Well, I guess if he put in like $1 and then they came out to $2.50, at least Basil isn't like making him pay for like all of it, I guess. You could now afford something at the shops. Just one thing that was infinitely better than none. Shiloh claps his hands. Yay! The two of you dashed outside. The promise of sugar buoyed you onto your destination where, breathless but happy, you stared at the overwhelming number of options. You knew what you wanted, but it wasn't just you who had contributed to the funds to get the treat. He seemed to notice your pause. Aren't you getting a popsicle? Shiloh asked as though he was entirely separate from the decision, rather than someone with a stake in the outcome. Do you mind? Shiloh cocked his head to the side. It was your idea. You should choose. I'm going to get something we both want. It wasn't fair for you to be the only one to decide when he'd been a main factor in making this happen. Some of the money came directly from his backpack. What do you like? All of them. They're so good. You pressed further. What do you really like? Popsicles or ice creams? Which is your favorite? Oh, it's hard to pick. I don't know. Frustrated, you cut to the heart of the matter. You want me to choose? Yeah. And that was that. You got this dessert you wanted originally and hoped Shiloh would actually like it too. Finally, the reward for all your hard work was in your hands. You sucked on the fruity popsicle you'd bought. The icy treat cooled you down perfectly, and the zesty flavor was refreshing. You held it out to Shiloh so he could take a turn, and he shook his head. He didn't want any after everything he did to help get it? That was weird.
It's okay.
Uh, what? Even if Shiloh said it was okay, every story you had ever seen on TV or read in a book said that sharing was caring. You stood your ground. I don't want to stand my ground. No, I'm going to hesitate still. It's okay, Basil. You want it more than I do, and I'm really happy that we got to play today already. You finish it. Well, it wasn't worth arguing further. The frozen treat was being worn away by the sun and starting to trickle dangerously towards your fingers. If you waited much longer, then neither of you would be getting to eat it. All right, thanks. The two of you began to head home back as you ate. You offered the treat once more to Shiloh, but he refused again. You walked side by side on the shore in silence, but your thoughts kept drifting to the boy beside you. Why didn't he speak up for himself? It was almost as if Shiloh didn't know how to say what he felt, or was too afraid to. Oh man! We're getting into the heart of things. Oh no! You figured that was his. No, that's mean. Are you scared of me? You thought that was kind of sad. Are we friends? I think it's silly to ask, are we friends? Are you scared of me? Shiloh opened his eyes wide, seemingly caught off guard by the blunt question. No way! But you don't tell me things like what you want to do or what treat we should get. That's not because I'm scared, it's because you have better ideas than I do. Oh, unfortunately, this was yet another thing you couldn't entirely believe Shiloh on. You hoped it was true and that he really did feel okay around you, though. Shiloh made you unsure about setting a label on the experience of spending the afternoon with him. There had been good times and there had been confusing ones. You were positive of one thing at least. The treat was delicious, and that was nice. The sun was low on the horizon as you returned to your neighborhood. There you spotted two very familiar figures up ahead, Lizzie and Cove. You opened your mouth to make your presence known to them just as you saw the tears on Cove's face. Aww. You walked straight over, Shiloh at your heels. Once there, you carefully asked what was happened. Without a time machine, the only way you were going to find out was by asking the witnesses. Lizzie might have done something, but she could have been in the wrong place at the wrong time or even come to Cove's aid. You wanted to hear the story. Cove, what happened?
Basil.
Basil, I got yelled at. He took a deep, steadying breath. Some grandparents got mad at me. Aw, sorry. Lizzie jerked her head in the direction of a nearby house. Your heart sunk. You knew exactly what had happened. Every year, the same mean old couple rented out that condo for the summer. You, Lizzie, and Shiloh knew to stay away from them, but Cove couldn't have. They're like that with everyone. Even your mom struggled to find anything nice to say about them, but the elderly pair particularly took offense to kids. It didn't matter if they were really nice like Cove. Yeah, Lizzie said. Lizzie drew herself up at that. She looked pointedly in your direction. Uh-huh, I was helping. That's cool. Is there anything I can do?
No.
No, I'm just gonna stay away. Or you could teach them a lesson. There was a devilish glint in her eyes. Atta girl. What? You should ding dong ditch them. Go ring the doorbell and run. It'll be great because they're so slow. They'll never catch you. That's dumb. I don't want to go near them ever again. Oh my god. You're just saying that because you're a cluck cluck chicken. Cove glared but didn't take the bait. Lizzie turned to you. You're not a chicken, are you? Yeah, cluck cluck. She can't tease you about being a chicken if you are, in fact, a chicken. Hunched over, you folded your arms to form wings and bat them up and down. Buck, 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 buck. Wait, sorry, I can do that better. Buck, 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 buck. Uh, for once, your sister seemed at a loss, but it didn't take long for her to regain her usual confidence. So you admit it. You continue to flap your arm wings as you circle around your sister, clucking all the while. There's no shame in a chicken being a chicken. Yeah, you're chicken. Things were not going the way Lizzie expected. She fought against a laugh and looked for a way to restore her serious authority. You and Cove are both little chickens. That's so funny. Cove folded his arms, even the one with the cast, even though the one with the cast wasn't as tightly tucked down, and joined you in cheeping around. It was hard to cluck through the giggles that rose up when you saw him imitating the chicken, but you both still gave a first-class performance. The door to the old couple's condo flung open to reveal one of the culprits behind Cove's tears. You froze, wings raised. Can't you let anyone have a bit of peace and quiet? God. He must not be a fan of theater or farm animals as well as Kid. That was the only explanation for his outburst, which was far louder than anything you and Cove had done. Go on, beat it! It was distinctly unfair, but Cove's lip was trembling, and you thought it would be best to heed his command. Lizzie took off, with Shiloh immediately trailing after her without as much as a glance back in your direction. So much for your friendship. You waved your arm at Cove, summoning him to follow you, and ran after Lizzie. The old man hollers propelled. Oh, God. The old man's hollers propelled you from the street to the sanctity of the hill. Only once you were safe did you notice the stitch in your chest and the ache of your legs. You flopped down, the blades of grass tickling your face. Lizzie, who had taken the lead in the end, was already lazing on the ground. The four of you took a moment to catch your breath and enjoy the feeling of cool grass against your skin. Hey, Cove. Cove lifted his head. I told you there were mean grandparents around here. Cove rolled his eyes, then decided it wasn't dismissive enough and rolled his whole body away from your sister. That's so funny. Lizzie chose to ignore his response and started chatting to Shiloh, who eagerly joined in the conversation. In the back of your mind, you knew you'd be second fiddle again to Shiloh once Lizzie came around. It always went like that. You'd been hoping the two of you might have become closer, but you had to let it go. He was happy where he was. There were other things to attend to anyway. You wriggled closer to Cove. He had calmed down for the most part and was inspecting a flower. His fingers pinched the stem and tilted the white petals towards him. That's a poppy. Cove glanced at you in acknowledgement, then back to the flower. And the type of poppies on this hill have the name white linen poppy. Mom told me. He quirked a smile. That's funny. He ran a finger around the edge of the petals. It doesn't feel like cloth. You'd need a lot of them to make anything. He nodded and released the delicate plant, evaluation complete. This is my favorite kind of flower, but I didn't know what it was called. Thanks. Oh my god, there's so many flower options. Type your own answer. Oh my god. I like peonies. They smell really nice. Those are fancy flowers. You'd look good with them. Aw, thanks. Oh, that's such a pretty art. That must be one of the nice drawings. That's gotta be one of the nice drawings. You moved onto your back with a small smile and looked at the darkening sky. The blanket of clouds reminded you of a thick throw you curled under on cold, raining days. You wondered if the clouds would be as soft. They lazily floated on by, splitting from each other, merging and morphing into new shapes. I saw an alpaca. You saw a fluffy alpaca in the sky. You nudged Cove and pointed to it. Can you see the alpaca? Cove, that was animated. That's cool. Cove joined you in. Oh, it's still animated. He's blinking. Aw. Cove joined you in gazing skywards. It's more like a llama. Hey. He chuckled at your reaction. All the sun's light faded from the sky and the moon rose higher. Lizzie got to her feet, dusting strands of grass from her bare legs, and surveyed her surroundings. The ocean, visible from the crest of the hill, beckoned with every sweep of the tide. Let's go to the beach. There was no argument from the other two. Shiloh was still Shiloh, and Cove would never say no to going to the shore. He was a child of the sea. You were too tired to argue. It had been a long, hot day. You weren't bothered about going there, but you would rather do that than make a scene. You stepped onto the sand for the second time that day, but it felt different at night. The beach was nearly quiet at this area. Whoa. The beach was nearly quiet at this hour. Abandoned sand castles and footsteps in the sand, too big to belong to any of you, were the only indication of how busy it had been only hours earlier. The four of you kicked shoes off and removed socks and walked along the water's edge. The waves tickled your feet. I wonder what would happen if you tried to take a bath in the ocean with shampoo and everything. That would be bad for the fish. I didn't say anyone would do it. Jeez, you don't have to be serious about everything. You're the one who would ask what would happen. That is what would happen. It hurt the fishes. I like bubble baths at home. They're a lot of fun. Me too. Bubble baths are luxurious. Luxurious. You'd never heard Lizzie use that word before. Mommy loves to have bubbles in her bath. She'd turn the lights off and have candles. I'm gonna do that next time. Hey, when's your mom coming to pick you up anyway? Not for a while. She's busy. Aw. What about your dad? How come you never talk about him? Nobody does. Don't you know you're not supposed to ask something like that? Why would somebody want to talk about something they never talk about? I mean, she's right. She's right. Like, fine. You kept your eyes on the ground, watching your toes get swallowed up by waves. Even if Shiloh never seemed upset when this topic came up, it made you feel awkward just for having both of your moms. It's okay. I'm like Lizzie and Basil. Um, I don't have a dad. But I don't have two moms. I just have one. She's really great. Oh, sorry. I only have one now too. My mom isn't here. She's back home. It's just my dad with me. Oh, I never had a dad or anything, so I don't feel bad. It's really sad that your mom is gone. Cove nodded. Hey, at least they're getting better. You joked about Shiloh's mom getting together with Cove's dad. Oh my god. I know that either one of the other options is better than this, but I also really want to see what happens. You didn't have anything comforting to say to that, so you tried to lighten the mood instead. Hey, since you both only have one parent, Cove's dad could marry Shiloh's mom. Then you two would be brothers. Oh no, that was the wrong thing to say. I just realized, right, he's a divorced kid. Cove stopped abruptly, his face set hard. My dad isn't gonna do that. Shiloh tugged at the rim of his hat. Neither's my mom. She doesn't want to marry anybody. I told you people this wasn't a good thing to talk about. It seemed your plan backfired and the mood soured even more. You didn't know what to do. The silence broke with a splash as Lizzie kicked in your direction. Cold water and sodden sand splattered against your legs. Lizzie giggled, foot still outstretched from the kick. Cove joined in, striking the incoming waves to make a splash of his own. Shiloh scurried out of Cove's spray zone with a grin. Retaliated. You used your foot to smack the water pooling around you, sending an arc of sea foam flying back onto your sister. You laughed as she sputtered, some of the salty seawater having landed in her mouth. She spat it out. Yuck. Lizzie chased you, intent on revenge. You dashed up and down the coast, taking it in turns to be the predator and the prey, as well as joining forces to take down Shiloh or Cove. Alliances were silently forged and wordlessly broken. Everything was fair game in war. Ah! Shiloh's brief exclamation was drowned out by the biggest splash yet, caused by him falling face first into the ground. That would have been bad enough without the wave that followed, cascading over his prone body. Shiloh sat up, shaking his head like a dog coming in from the rain, as you all hurried over to check on him. His hair was plastered to his head, and his soaked clothes clung. If there was any part of him that was still dry, you couldn't see it. That was crazy. Are you okay? Yeah, my foot got stuck and I fell out. Oh no! Oh gosh, is he okay? Way to go, Shiloh, you Dumbo. That's not very nice. Shiloh didn't take your outstretched hand. After a moment, you dropped it. Lizzie was too busy snickering to notice and held her hand out to Shiloh, too. Oh. He reached over and took it. Slowly, he started to pull himself up from the ground. Then he slipped on the slick sand, dragging him and Lizzie down just in time for another wave to hit. The water rolled over them. Oh, sorry. What were, what were the odds of that happening twice in a row? You thought they must be low, but there's no way Shiloh would do something like that on purpose, then pretend it was an accident, especially not to Lizzie. Even if your relationship with Shiloh felt unclear, he did at least like her a lot. Lizzie was his favorite, right? Hmm. Smiling boldly, Lizzie extracted herself from the ground and wiped a streak of sand from her cheek. She didn't intend to let this embarrass her. Shiloh got up again as well, this time without incident. He still looked like a drowned puppy, but that didn't stop Cove laughing at the two of them. With that, it was time to call it a day. The four of you drudgingly made your way back home, leaving a trail of wet footsteps and sand in your wake as damp clothes weighed the group down. Your moms were outside, chatting to Cove's dad. We're back! Your mom's faces fell when they took in the state you were all in, ranging from messy to soaked. Elizabeth, is that all you have to say for yourself? You brought half the beach back with you. They certainly did. What's Marigold gonna do when she comes to get Shiloh? Is that how you want him to be for the long drive home, cold and filthy? Lizzie's expression turned sulky over the scolding. Being the oldest could be fun, but it also meant she was the first to get in trouble when something went wrong. Mr. Holden, on the other hand, chuckled as he ruffled Cove's matted hair. You've been out making memories, bucko. I'm glad you had a good time with your friends. Cove used his slightly moist cast arm to push his dad off. Mr. Holden's eyes widened when he noticed even that had gotten wet. Now he was worried, too. I think they could have found a less risky way to spend the time and had just as much fun. That might be right. Kids, what can you do? Come on, Cove, let's get you cleaned up and dried off. We wouldn't want that cast to have to be reset. Cove winced at the thought. Okay, that a boy. Mr. Holden casually bent down and plucked Cove off of the ground, ultimately holding Cove against his chest. Sand was already transferring from Cove onto him, but that didn't seem to bother Mr. Holden. Cove protested being carried, but only got a reassuring pat on the back for his trouble.
Take care.
Good night, Cove. Thank you for the talk, Cliff. Night, Lee family, and Shiloh, too. Resigned to his fate, Cove twisted his body in his dad's arm in order to turn around and wave goodbye. Smiling, he waved back. Good night. Well, we'd better do what we can to fix you guys up too. Come on, everybody inside. I want you to march straight to the downstairs bathroom. Yes, Mom. Okay, Lizzie's mom. Don't worry about stopping to wipe your feet on the mat this time. That won't do much good tonight. Sitting on an old beach towel your mommy had found, you waited in the hall. Until you were less sandy, you weren't allowed to go to your room or walk around the house. But you did get to eat a sandwich for dinner there. It felt like an indoor picnic. It had been decided that Shiloh would wash first and borrow some of your clothes. He was already finished and packed away in his mom's car. Mrs. Fields had come to collect him a little while ago. It was a bit of a funny experience seeing him without that hat on for once. Lizzie, being much more soaked than you, got to go in the tub next. It wasn't a bubble bath as she had hoped. This was a no fun allowed cleanup session. At least that's what she claimed. Not much longer and it would be your turn. When the bath was done, you'd have to go right to bed. After a day like this, though, you were glad there weren't going to be any further events. Drifting off to sleep sounded like a great idea. Okay. It looks like we're only gonna finish step one anyway. All right, tonight we're gonna catch fireflies. At this blunt declaration from your sister, you looked up from your macaroni and cheese dinner. Fireflies were a familiar sight over summer, coming out on warm nights to dance through the sky. Tonight was particularly balmy. You knew there were bound to be a ton of them around. Oh, you are you? I'm gonna eat faster. A grin curved your lips as you started to eat a bit faster, excited for what was to come. It seemed like you were too excited, however, as you started to choke and cough on your food from shoveling it down so quickly. Um. Okay, this is a funny story that I don't mind sharing, actually. It's really dumb. On more than one occasion, because Gred and Ash are probably going to be the only ones that see this anyway, so it's fine. I don't think anybody's even in chat right now. So, multiple occasions as a child, I don't have a very good sense of when I'm hungry. Like I basically realize that I'm hungry whenever my stomach starts hurting or like my blood sugar starts crashing kind of deal. So like whenever I was a kid, I like as an adult, I'm much better about just like remembering to eat periodically, and then I don't have that issue. I just remember to eat periodically and then it's not a problem. Boom. But as a kid, I would like get so caught up in stuff, I would forget, and then by the time I started eating, I was like, oh my god, I'm starving, right? So on multiple occasions, I have eaten things, and I eat with my hands a lot. I would eat something so quickly that I would bite my fingers. I have done one time I did it so hard. I was eating French fries, and I was probably only in like maybe fifth grade, probably younger, but no older than fifth grade. And I was like, "Ung, ung, ung," and I was eating, and we were in a restaurant, and I was eating my French fries, and I ate them so fast that I bit my finger like really hard. Like I bit my fingers like really hard, and like I was just sitting there trying so hard not to cry. My mom was laughing at me. My dad was like, "Oh, why are you crying?" And then my mom's like, they bit their fingers. And I'm just like embarrassed. And then also my fingers hurt and I was trying. It seemed like you were oh, wait, I already read that one. Mommy reached over to pat you on the back, firmly helping to dislodge the noodles and enable you to breathe again. You took a big gulp of water from your glass, giving your moms a sheepish look. Oop, oops. That's a good idea, Lizzie. Can we, Mrs. Leaf? Shiloh tapped his fork against the table excitedly, his face lighting up as he looked at Lizzie. It was unusual for Shiloh to still be here. Like always, his mom had to bring him over really early in the morning before her job started. But normally, she would have picked him up by now. She called before dinner to let your moms know she'd be late. You didn't hear why. Probably more work things. You thought maybe getting to hang out with Shiloh for longer is what made Lizzie want to keep running around outside. Staying at home and watching TV was never an option for her with guests over, and that's why you were pretty sure she'd get your moms to agree. Oh, she's a little hostess. She likes to entertain, which honestly, from everything I've seen that she's done or whatever, that tracks like 100%. Well, it's already so dark out here. Lizzie gave Mom the best puppy dog eyes she could, slowly spooning mac and cheese into her mouth while you waited for their response. Let them go. Nights like this don't happen every day. Your parents exchanged a look, then Mom eventually sighed and nodded back. Yes. Along with Lizzie's cheers, you threw your arms up in triumph, but waited until you finished chewing to say anything because you knew it was rude to talk with your mouth full. Fine, fine. Just make sure you stay on the hill behind our house with all the poppies, okay? Duh, Mom. That's where most of them are. The idea had only just been planted in your head, the idea had only just been planted in your head, but already you could just picture all the glowing lights spread out in front of you like fairies from the bedtime stories Mommy reads sometimes. All too quickly, it became a race to see who could finish their first food first. No choking at the dinner table now. That's right, if somebody died, we'd have to cancel the Firefly trip after. That's exactly what a parent would use. Mom said it like a joke, but but you knew that they were both telling you kids to slow down. Shiloh did immediately. When you glanced at Lizzie, you saw her still eating faster than she should. Elizabeth, no one's gonna die. Sheesh. A knock on the door interrupted Mom before she could, no doubt, scold your sister. I'll get it. Your big sister jumped out of her seat and ran over to the door, pulling it open without even looking out the window to see who it was. I would never be allowed to do that. I was I was in like high school before I was regularly opening the door for people. Huh? You shifted in your seat to try and get a glimpse of the unexpected guest. Good evening, Cove. Your mommy had already walked to the door by that time. You managed to see past Shiloh's floppy hat. Oh, Cove, hi, you're here. Cove smiled at your enthusiastic greeting, and you hoped Mommy would ask him to stay. It didn't matter why he was here. It meant he could join you all in catching fireflies. Then, for a few seconds, Cove said nothing. He only stood there and looked up at your mommy with a face almost like he was considering turning around and leaving. My dad told me to drop this off because I guess he borrowed it from you. Cove took a familiar screwdriver out from out of his large side pocket, eyes now dropped to the floor. We left ours back home when we moved. Great, thanks. Bye. Thank you. Here, why don't you come inside for a bit? Lizzie crossed her arms and lifted her chin. Cove shrugged, and Mom stood from the table too. I'll give your dad a call to let him know you got here all right. Cove shuffled fully inside, eyes remaining on the ground. Mommy closed the door behind him. Hi, Cove. Shiloh gave Cove a friendly smile while waving by, holding up his hand and opening and closing his fingers. Cove nodded in response. Cove, you're gonna catch fireflies with us. You could see Lizzie eyeing you for mentioning the excursion to an outsider, but she'd get over it. He's not even an outsider. He's new, but he's like already an established part of your friend group. At this point, he's been here like all summer. You hoped Cove would say yes. That way, you wouldn't be the odd one out with Lizzie and Shiloh anymore.
Yeah.
I can do that. I'd never caught one before. It's too bad he didn't have a chance before now. The fireflies weren't out when he first moved in, and there must not have been any where he used to live. We can't go until after dinner. After she pointed this out, Lizzie walked back to the table and took her seat. There wasn't much left on her plate. Since this was very true, you decided to finish up your own stuff as well. Cove stepped closer and eyed what was on the menu for your family's meal. Have you eaten yet? Yeah, my dad and I ate earlier. What did you have? Eggs. Eggs. The clipped one-word answer seemed to discourage Shiloh from asking any more questions. His eyes slowly wandered back to the last scraps of food on his plate. Her phone call with Cove's dad must have ended because your mom came back to the living room, or to the room. Cove, your dad said you can stay for a little while if you'd like, but he's going to come get you before it gets too much later. Sure.
Fine.
Oh, fun. This will be so nice. As you polished off the meal, you hoped it would be too. The three of you all finished eating shortly after, and Lizzie led the way outside. Remember, don't stray too far. It's fine, Mom. Shiloh trailed so closely after Lizzie, he was nearly stepping on her heels. Cove hesitated at the door. Coming? After a moment, he did.
Bye.
Bye, children. The two of you were a good 10 or 15 feet behind Lizzie and Shiloh by the time you walked outside. You pushed the door shut behind you, watching their figures get farther and farther away. You're so slow, Basil. We don't have all night. You started to run when you heard Lizzie's voice calling you, but paused when you saw Cove still walking at a relaxed pace. I'll walk with him. You fell behind, sidling. What? Siding? Saddling? Saddling up next to him and matching his stride, he noticed right away. You can go ahead if you want. You smile and shake your head. I don't. After a short while, the two of you reached the hill behind the house. The fireflies were out in full force, floating on the breeze, their gentle glow winking in and out and creating an almost magical effect. Lizzie had already climbed to the top. Shiloh was spinning in circles somewhere in the middle. Wow. Shiloh took a moment to come over and welcome the both of you to the hill. Hi guys, it's really great out, huh? See how many there are? Yeah. A firefly danced through the air, landing on Cove's sea green head. Covering your mouth with a hand, the sound escaped you, and Cove looked at you in confusion. What? You gestured to his head, and he reached up, making the firefly dart away. Cove jumped, then followed after the glow. Oh look, Oh look, Lizzie has one. That's amazing. Shiloh ran to the highest point of the hill, making sure not to lose his hat or backpack along the way. You hummed as the group divided and conquered, shifting your gaze to the dozens of other fireflies sailing around. The game was on. Why do I have bandages? Oh, you don't. Oh, okay. I could have bandages. Let's see. Let's be real. I got cut at some point, probably. Spotting one close by, you approached it with assassin-like stealth, crouching down to make yourself seem less of a threat. Slowly dragging one foot in front of the other, you crept up towards it, arms outstretched. You closed your hands around the little glowing orb, careful not to crush it. The firefly landed on your palm, almost docile, and you stared down at your prize in delight. Its tiny legs tickled your skin, and you giggled at the sensation. Cove kept up with his own target, but when he tried to grab it, his pink cast waved awkwardly through the air, foiling his efforts to clap his hands around the firefly. Ugh. Cove watched it vanish into thin air with a dissatisfied expression on his face. You told him about the firefly you had. Hey, want to see the one I got? Cove gave one more look in the direction of his lost prize before coming closer and peering at the insect still crawling across your palm. You held out your hand and he leaned closer, eyes widening a tad behind his glasses. Cove remained hypnotized by the little bug as he inched his hand closer to yours. Ultimately, he settled his fingers lightly over top of the ones you were holding open. It tingled. The last thing you wanted was to accidentally scare the shiny treasure off. Aww. Oh, hey, this is special. This is one of those special drawings because it's got the bandage on the thumb, like I said, and then also the shell necklace or bracelet. Oh my gosh. Shout out to Gred for picking the shell bracelet. The firefly, noticing the new connection, crawled up onto Cove's hand. He quietly gasped. It worked. Yeah, you got one. Cove's lips turned into a slow smile and his eyes shined brighter than the bug. Thanks, Basil. With a laugh, he gave the palm of your hand a friendly smack, performing an awkward low five. Startled by the extreme movement, the tiny light disappeared before you could even blink. Your firefly was gone. Oops, sorry. It's fine. It's okay. I couldn't keep it forever. Right? Bugs have to stay outside. Let's get another. Yeah, sure. Uh-huh, we can work together. His face broke out into a wide grin. We'll get a bunch. With renewed vigor, you ran out into the hill. You're not sure how much time passed while you were in the thick of it. All you could focus on was the adventure at hand. No critter was safe from your grasp. At first, you tried to keep a tally of how many you had caught, but once the number grew higher than 10, you had no fingers left to count with. You were having the time of your life, racing up and down the hill with the crash of the ocean and the sound of everyone's laughter echoing in the background. Basil, this way! You followed the sound of Cove's voice to the top of the hill, watching as he stretched his arms in front of him, reaching with his fingers and only narrowly missing his target. Cove and you took turns trying to scare fireflies in the direction of the other. You showed him some techniques that you had learned, like how to cup your hands correctly, and he listened attentively before trying for himself. There were a few times when you almost ran into each other, giggling as you dove to the side at the last moment. Luckily, disaster was avoided each time. It was an overall huge success, with the both of you catching multiple fireflies each. Eventually, the fireflies began to thin out and your energy started to lapse. You decided it was time to call off the hunt. Cove didn't complain. He breathed in heavily and his face seemed really flushed. That was fun. A lot of fun. You smiled at him broadly, happy that he had enjoyed the activity. Yeah, it was. Basil, Cove, get up here. We're going to have a race. The shouting caught you off guard. It had been quite a while since you heard from Lizzie or Shiloh. You glanced over to see both of them standing on top of the hill again, Lizzie beckoning you with quick hand gestures. If she was like that, you knew there wasn't much room for disagreement. Up the incline you went. From the corner of your eye, you saw Cove was coming as well. He didn't care for Lizzie a lot, so you thought he might be intrigued just by the idea of a race. Hi. Hi. Cove, you can't roll down the hill. You could hurt your arm again. You'll be the referee for the rest of us. As Lizzie pointed this out, Cove froze in place. Oh, it was that kind of race. He frowned down at his cast. That was the second time it got in the way tonight. Aw, what? Yeah, you'll watch and see who gets to the bottom first. That's important. Got it? I guess. The cast was sturdy. If he was careful, he could have done it. Lizzie might have just been looking for a reason to make someone else the referee, but it was already decided.
Really?
Really? Why? You don't have to. It's okay. I want to watch. You moved beside him on top of the hill, even though Lizzie eyed you and made a face. That's not how races work. We only need one referee. Shrugging your shoulders, you refused to budge, and Lizzie let out a huff before throwing her hands in the air. Fine, I'll be the winner whether you join or not. Lizzie moved to lay down, and Shiloh did the same. Cove stood slightly to the side to get a better vantage point, and you stood next to him. Countdown! Cove stood up a little straighter. It seemed like he was taking his newfound referee duties seriously. 3, 2, 1, go! Lizzie and Shiloh took off, letting gravity do the work and rolling at high speed toward the bottom of the hill. You and Cove leaned forward to watch them go, eyes peeled for which of the two would reach the bottom first. They were both neck and neck until about halfway down the hill, Lizzie started to veer off to the side, giving Shiloh a huge advantage. She obviously hadn't noticed a thing, and as soon as Shiloh reached the bottom of the hill, he jumped up excitedly and threw his hands in the air. I won! Almost immediately, he fell back onto the grass, still dizzy from his roll down the hill. Lizzie stomped out of the bush she had ended up in, sputtering angrily and brushing leaves from the front of her dress. Not bad. You got lucky. Let's do it again and see who wins for real. Kids, it's time to come in. No. You snickered, feeling grateful you hadn't been a part of the mini debacle. You caught Cove's eyes and saw he was doing the same. It had gotten late and was beginning to feel just a bit chilly as you made your way out of the hills, but the cold in the air hadn't dampened anyone's spirits. The four of you walked back home together, side by side, down your neighborhood street, discussing the evening, with each person trying to prove that they were the one who caught the most fireflies. You knew that whoever really did catch the most didn't matter much anyway. All that mattered was that you had a good time, which, judging by the smiles on everyone's faces, you did. And then the summer ended. I have no choice. I have to move to the next. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me save real quick. Maybe I shouldn't. Oh, whoopsie. No, I shouldn't say. I'm just gonna save and be done. This is a good end. This is a good end. Okay. So we finished. Did I just save that? I think I just saved that. The true gamer moment. Did I save that? Did I save that? Did I save that? What is the config? Oh, okay. All right, anyway. So, yes, I think that's a good place to wrap up with this. If this is something that you guys like, I like this game. I'll probably play it on my own, even if, even if this isn't something that, you guys want to see more of, but I thought it was fun. I also just kind of like reading, so there's probably that too. Um, so yeah. I will be back on what's the word? I will be back on Thursday. I'll be back on Thursday. So let's see. Where's my ending screen? There's my ending screen. I will see you guys on Thursday. Bye.